Outside the compound wall, once that devilish howling faded away, the internal bloodshed fought purely for survival soon drew to an end. Scar, the once arrogant overlord of the camp, perished at the blades of his most loyal underlings. Snow and wind swiftly buried his corpse. A dozen surviving stragglers dropped their weapons one after another, drained of all strength. They dropped to their knees in the frigid snow, bowing their heads toward the silent, mysterious villa. None knew who dwelled within, nor what fate awaited them. They understood only one truth. Starting this day, a new god-like ruler reigned over this territory. Seconds ticked by, stretching on endlessly. Just as the survivors were on the verge of freezing solid, the villa's despairingly heavy alloy gate rumbled low and creaked open a narrow crack. A figure stepped out from behind it. It was not the heavily armed fiend they'd feared, but a quiet, rational woman clad in spotless white protective coveralls and safety goggles. Chen Jing. Acting on Lu Yuyi's orders, she had stepped forward at the perfect moment. Her calm gaze swept slowly across every survivor kneeling in the snow. She carried an air of civilized refinement utterly alien to this filthy, brutal apocalypse, a bearing that commanded innate authority over the desperate crowd. Who are you? One survivor summoned the courage to stammer. Will that divine lord spare us? I am merely a messenger. Chen Jing's voice was steady yet crisp, reaching every ear without fail. My master, the lord of this fortress, offers you a single choice. She paused, enunciating each word sharply. Submit or die. Silence fell over the group. No soul dared speak. Chen Jing went on. Your chieftain is dead, and the old laws die with him. New rules govern this land from today onward. First, we do not feed idlers here. Every soul must labor, using your hands or your wits to earn every necessity for survival. Second, treachery and infighting will not be tolerated. Anyone who defies these rules will end frozen as an ice statue. Third, and most vital of all, her eyes sharpened. Obey every command my master issues without question. She scanned their numb, compliant faces and finished speaking. Now, those who accept the new laws step to the right. Any who refuse may leave freely. We will not bar your path. The survivors exchanged panicked glances, then nearly all scrambled hastily to the right. Leave? Where could they go if they abandoned this compound? Death awaited them outside. Staying meant abiding by harsh rules, yet it meant a fighting chance to live. Following Lu Yi's directions, Chen Jing officially took charge of the survivors as his spokesperson. Guided by his principles, she built an orderly, science-backed system where supplies were traded for individual contributions. Those with technical skill maintained equipment. The strong cleared battlefields and reinforced defenses. Chen Jing herself oversaw overall coordination and administration. A warped yet ruthlessly efficient miniature society quietly rose from the wasteland. And Lu Yuyi remained its unseen, godlike absolute ruler, pulling all strings from the shadows. Inside the fortress, Lu Yuyi watched every unfolding scene coldly via surveillance feeds. One last loose end remained. He activated a drone. Tracking the marker he'd planted earlier, he pinpointed her location dozens of kilometers away, at an abandoned gas station. Xiao Jia huddled behind a rusted tire, barely clinging to life. Lu Yuyi had no intention of bringing her back. He guided the drone to set down a large parcel a short distance from her hiding spot. Inside lay enough compressed biscuits and purified water for a month. It also contained a compact cold-weather tent, a canister of fuel, and a flare gun. Tucked on top was a slip of paper sealed in a waterproof pouch, bearing just 5 characters. Our debt is settled. Once the task was done, he recalled the drone. He'd granted her life, and the cruelest punishment this apocalypse could offer, utter loneliness. Whether she lived or perished rested entirely on her own luck. With all loose ends dealt with, Lu Yuyi retreated alone to his vast, impenetrably secure fortress. The fire of vengeance had burned out, and the rush of adrenaline faded, leaving him engulfed in a heavy, hollow stillness. Settling into his study, he retrieved the top-secret classified file on the hibernation project he'd recovered from the armory. He knew Xiao Jia and Aha were merely fragments of his past to sever. But the truth of this broken world, and the far greater disasters lurking beneath its surface, were only just beginning to reveal themselves. He stared out at the raging snowstorm. All confusion and hatred vanished from his eyes. His gaze was replaced by unyielding resolve, cold as solid ice, to uncover the unknown. Seated in his study, Lu Yi watched through the window as Chun Jing directed the survivors to clear the battlefield. The past that had haunted him across 2 lifetimes was fully laid to rest. The truth of this world, and the greater crises hidden beneath it, would be his true adversaries moving forward. He tore his gaze from the window and fixed it on the top-secret hibernation project dossier laid across his desk, recovered from the armory vault. At that moment, his encrypted communicator buzzed to life. It was Qinjing. Master. Her voice rang clear, composed and deferential over the line. The outer battlefield has been fully cleared. All usable supplies are recovered, and the corpses deeply buried per your instructions. Good. Lu Yi replied. His voice filtered through a voice modifier to sound icy and authoritative. How do the survivors fare? Their spirits are steady, Qinjing answered. They understand their place. I have laid the groundwork for the new system you envisioned. Tell me more, Lu Yi said, intrigued. I've named it the contribution point system. A hint of quiet confidence edged her tone. Within the camp, no survivor holds higher or lower station than another. Everyone must work to earn the right to survive. We've set up various assignments: battlefield cleanup, defense reinforcement, and equipment maintenance. Even expeditions into uncharted territory. Each completed task grants corresponding contribution points, which they may exchange for all necessities from the communal supply depot under my management. Food, medicine, and water are included. Even the privilege of a private living quarters. A flicker of approval crossed Lu Yi's face. An excellent framework, he judged. Replace fear with hope, violence with rules. That is the way to endure long-term. Full authority over this matter is yours. I will restock supplies on a regular basis. Thank you, Master. Excitement lingered faintly in Qinjing's tone. She knew her talents had finally found a stage to shine. One further matter. What would you have me do with the captured men from Gathering Righteousness Manor? Lu Yi pictured the bald brute named Lei Bao in his mind. Lock them away for now. They still have use. He said flatly. Tell them labor earns meals. Our oasis does not shelter idle hands. Understood. Once the call ended, Lu Yi refocused all his attention on the cryptic dossier before him. Pulling on white cotton gloves, he carefully unfolded its yellowed pages, some stained with dried blood. Most of the document's text was locked behind specialized encryption, unreadable to him. Other sections were smudged and illegible, yet the fragmented, unencrypted information alone chilled him to the bone. He learned the hibernation project was helmed by a colossal pre-apocalyptic multinational conglomerate with boundless wealth and global reach, Shield Biotech. Lu Yi recognized the name from his previous life, a titan dominating the fields of biological and genetic research, home to the world's most cutting-edge technology. The dossier repeatedly referenced a single code name, S001. From scattered fragmented descriptions, S001 was the first and sole successful initial test subject of the hibernation project. The file wrote of it in near fanatical terms, boasting its unimaginable environmental adaptability. It also praised its flawless genetic makeup and mental interference capabilities. Lu Yi's pupils constricted sharply at those last three words. Instantly, his mind flashed back to the horrifying wolf siege. Those wolves were no ordinary beasts. They coordinated in packs, employed tactical maneuvers, and even sacrificed their fallen kin to drain power from the electric fences. Such sophisticated organization could only mean one thing. A superior, intelligent consciousness commanded them. If S001 truly wielded the power to manipulate minds, could it have orchestrated the wolf attack? A terrifying suspicion took root in Lu Yi's thoughts. He flipped deeper into the file. Tucked within the dossier's inner pocket was a folded city map. A thick red marker circled one location prominently across its surface. It marked the address of a research institute, with hasty, scribbled handwriting. Shaky from panic, the note read, Shield Biotech, City Research Institute No. 3. S001. Gone rogue, it still resides here. Lu Yi's breathing quickened instantly. To unravel the truth behind the apocalypse and uncover the full nature of S001, he realized this marked research institute was a destination he could not avoid. He rose slowly, walking to the wall map. With a red pushpin, he pinned the institute's location firmly in place. This site likely held secrets far more critical than anything in the armory. Yet it would also bring unimaginable danger, far greater than before. Staring at the red pinprick on the map, his resolve hardened completely. Lu Yi stared at the Shield Biotech Research Institute marked by the red pushpin, his gaze unwavering. This would be his next target. Yet he knew full well the danger level here dwarfed every prior mission he'd undertaken. He could no longer operate alone as he had before. He needed a team, one utterly loyal and bound by iron discipline. After a week of observation, the contribution point system overseen by Qinjing at his survivor oasis camp was running smoothly. Eager to secure better living conditions, The survivors threw themselves into labor with great enthusiasm. Lu Yi decided the time had come to test the mettle of his new subjects and select the core recruits for his future expedition squad. That morning, he sent new orders to Chunjing via his communicator. Soon, a mission notice handwritten by Chunjing was posted on the camp's most prominent bulletin board. Official first expedition mission of the Oasis Camp. Mission objective: travel to the abandoned West City communication base 3 kilometers away. Retrieve the signal amplifier mounted on its roof and spare power supply components located underground. Mission requirements: a 5-person team with proficiency in combat, vehicle operation, and mechanical maintenance. Mission rewards: every member who returns safely will receive 5,000 contribution points. They would also receive priority rights to select private living quarters. The notice hit the survivors like a boulder crashing into a still lake, stirring massive unrest among them. 5,000 contribution points. That sum would cover all their food and supplies for months to come, granting them a standard of living fit for royalty. The staggering reward tempted everyone, yet the clear dangers deterred most. After heated debates and preliminary screening, a registration form signed by more than a dozen bold survivors was handed over to Qinjing. Inside the fortress, Lu Yi studied the applicants' profiles. He reviewed the personal evaluations attached by Qinjing, sinking into deep thought. Minutes later, he reached a decision. These 5 will go. He sent the final roster to Qinjing. The selected team members were as follows. Team Captain: Wang Hu, nicknamed Old Wolf, a retired Special Forces soldier in his 40s, taciturn with extensive frontline combat experience. Technician: Zhang Qian, a retired university professor in his 60s, highly versed in circuit design. Driver: Li Fei, a 30-something long-haul trucker, bold yet meticulous with exceptional driving skills. Combat specialists: 2 young men in their early 20s, physically robust, who displayed remarkable bravery during previous skirmishes. When the roster was announced, the 5 chosen men wore a mix of emotions. They felt excitement, nervousness, and quiet unease. Early the next morning, as the hastily assembled expedition team gathered at the camp gate, they witnessed a sight they would never forget. A heavily reinforced, ruggedly modified armored vehicle sat silently before them. Beside it lay 5 brand-new Type 95 automatic rifles glinting cold metallic silver, alongside matching ammunition and bulletproof vests. "These are all for us," Driver Li Fei stammered, staring in complete disbelief. Qinjing nodded and handed a walkie-talkie to Captain Wang Hu. "This is my master's order," she said evenly. "He will equip you with the best gear available, but he expects peak performance in return." Wang Hu accepted the radio with solemn gravity. Glancing at the armored vehicle and genuine military rifles, his eyes blazed with the devotion of a warrior willing to lay down his life for one who values him. "Please relay my words to your master," he said in a deep, resolute tone. "We will not fail this mission." The expedition squad set off. Unknown to them, a silent drone hovered thousands of meters above their heads, acting as an all-seeing eye in the sky, streaming every single move straight to Lu Yi's central control console. Lu Yi did not accompany them personally. He had no use for mindless puppets who only followed orders blindly. He sought an elite unit capable of operating independently in the days ahead. This mission was their first major trial, and he would stand as their omnipotent patron deity watching from the shadows. The armored vehicle cruised smoothly across the snow. Everything appeared to be going without a hitch. However, 1 kilometer short of the communication base, trouble emerged. "Master, this is Spearhead Team," Captain Wang, whose voice crackled over the radio. "The main road ahead is completely blocked by an overturned shipping container. Our vehicle cannot pass. Request instructions." Lu Yi watched the live drone feed, instantly pinpointing an alternate route. "Received," he replied through his voice modifier, his tone cold and commanding. "Abandon the main road, turn left, and enter the derelict commercial alleyway." "But master," Wang Hu hesitated, "that alley is a dead end, sealed off by a wall at its terminus." "The wall at the alley's end is a flimsy brick structure," Lu Yi answered. His voice carried unshakable, unarguable confidence without a trace of emotion. "Accelerate to 60 kilometers per hour and crash straight through it. You have 30 seconds to make your call." Silence fell on the other end of the radio. The rest of the crew inside the vehicle had all heard the borderline reckless order. "See, Captain, are we really going to ram it?" One young combat specialist paled visibly. Wang Hu's face flickered with indecision before he gritted his teeth. "Execute the order," he roared at Driver Li Fei. "Floor it." "Yes, sir." The armored vehicle let out a thunderous roar, swerving sharply to barrel into the narrow alley. Guided by Lu Yi's godlike precise directions and urgent countdown, the squad escaped disaster. They steered clear of a seemingly flat stretch of ice concealing a collapsed void beneath, and circumvented a crumbling high rise ready to topple at any moment. Every time they hit a dead end, that icy voice over the radio laid out an absurd yet flawless path forward. The team's initial skepticism melted into shock, then into utter, reverent awe. They finally understood their mysterious master wielded power beyond their comprehension, power akin to a god's. In the end, the squad reached the communication base without serious incident. They successfully recovered all required equipment. When they drove the armored vehicle back to the camp in triumph, every survivor greeted them as heroes. The successful expedition acted as a massive morale booster. It lifted the spirits of the entire encampment. Back inside his fortress, Lu Yi watched the cheering crowd on his monitors, a faint, satisfied smile crossing his face. He knew the core foundation of his future elite team had taken solid shape. This successful expedition served as a powerful stimulant, pumping hope into the fragile new order born amid the apocalypse. Yet this hard-won joy would not last long. The following morning after the squad's return, the camp's perimeter alarms blared once more. This time, the surveillance feeds showed no mutated beasts. Instead, a convoy of 3 heavily modified off-road trucks pulled into view. The vehicles halted 100 meters outside the Oasis camp's outer barriers. Doors flew open, and 7 burly, fully armed men jumped down, each clutching an automatic rifle, bulging waistlines lined with firearms, bloodshot eyes marking them as hardened survivors who had scraped by in the wasteland. At their head stood a lean, bald man with a faint scar slicing across his cheek, Lei Bao. A cigar of unknown origin dangled from his lips as he eyed Lu Yi's impenetrable fortress with arrogant disdain. They held off on attacking immediately, sending one man forward with a megaphone to shout across the barriers. "Listen up inside. We hail from Gathering Righteousness Manor and mean no harm passing through. Our boss Master Lei wishes to strike a trade deal with whoever runs this place." Gathering Righteousness Manor. Lu Yi's brows furrowed slightly inside the fortress. He had heard the name in his past life. It was a large survivor faction entrenched on the opposite side of the city, numbering hundreds of members occupying a luxury resort. They commanded significant strength and acted with unbridled tyranny. He had not expected them so soon. "Master, what should we do?" Chen Jing's voice crackled over the radio, heavy with tension. "Stay calm," Lu Yi replied evenly. "They are only testing us. Go out to negotiate. Carry yourself with poise. Our oasis fears no one." "Understood." Chen Jing took a deep breath, adjusted her protective suit, and stepped slowly out of the fortress gates alone. Within the camp, the other survivors huddled nervously behind fortifications. They kept their weapons trained on the uninvited strangers outside. When Lei Bao laid eyes on only a gentle-looking woman emerging from the steel fortress, contempt flickered across his face. "What's this? You send just a young girl to speak for you?" Lei Bao exhaled a cloud of cigar smoke, his tone dripping with condescension. "My name is Chen Jing, administrator of the Oasis camp," she replied with unwavering composure. "My master does not receive visitors. Any business can be settled with me." "Interesting." Lei Bao sized Chen Jing up and down, his predatory, unhidden gaze unsettling to behold. "Very well, since you hold authority, I'll cut straight to the chase." He gestured lazily toward the trucks behind him. "Our manor's ammunition stocks have run low lately. You must be short on food, right? I'll trade 500 cans of beef for 5 crates of antibiotics. This deal works out well for you, don't you think?" This was no genuine trade offer. It was nothing more than extortion. Chen Jing sneered inwardly, but kept her expression neutral. Via the miniature communicator hidden in her collar, she relayed every word of his demand verbatim to Lu Yi inside the fortress. "Tell him our medical supplies come at a steep price." Lu Yi's frigid voice came through the line. Chen Jing nodded, lifted her head, met Lei Bao's gaze directly, and spoke calmly. "Master Lei, I'm afraid I must disappoint you." "Oh." Lei Bao raised an eyebrow. "First, we have no shortage of food." Chen Jing's tone remained steady. "Second, we will only exchange medicine for 3 types of goods." "Let's hear them." Lei Bao's expression darkened, stunned that such a seemingly frail woman dared turn him down. Chen Jing held up 3 fingers, enunciating each word clearly. "Replacement parts for high-precision machine tools, polysilicon refining equipment, or intelligence regarding Shield Biotech." The instant the name Shield Biotech left Chen Jing's mouth, Lei Bao's arrogant, overbearing demeanor shifted abruptly. The corner of his mouth twitched, his gaze shifting from scorn to deep wariness. He stared hard at Chen Jing, then glanced up at the silent steel fortress looming through the snow, trying to peer inside. After a long pause, he crushed his cigar, but roughly beneath his boot. Heh, interesting. Damn interesting. He dropped all talk of trade, let out a cold snort, and waved a hand at his men. Let's move out. The 3 off-road trucks roared to life and vanished into the snowstorm moments later. Watching their retreating silhouettes, Chen Jing slowly exhaled, her back soaked through with cold sweat. She knew this group would never let the matter rest. Inside the fortress, Lu Yi tracked the convoy fading on his surveillance screen, his gaze growing deep and thoughtful. Trouble, he knew, would come knocking soon. Inside the fortress, Lu Yi stared at the convoy shrinking steadily on the surveillance screen, his gaze deepening. Just as he predicted, Lei Bao's vehicles had not gone far. Footage streamed down from the high-altitude drone revealed they'd set up a hidden temporary camp in a depression ringed by abandoned buildings several kilometers away. Foolishly courting death, Lu Yi let out a cold snort. He made no immediate move. Instead, like a patient hunter, he quietly tracked every movement of his prey, eager to gauge the true mettle of the gathering righteousness manor faction. The day passed uneventfully. As night fell and the snowstorm raged harder, activity finally stirred within Lei Bao's camp. More than a dozen elite subordinates clad in white camouflage suits slipped silently out like phantoms across the snow. They crept toward the oasis camp under cover of darkness and blizzard. They moved with remarkable professionalism, navigating terrain to avoid open ground and holding tight tactical formation, clearly seasoned veterans. Leading them was none other than Lei Bao himself. Listen up, all of you. Lei Bao barked final orders through his tactical headset. From what we scouted by day, their defenses are concentrated on the front gate. We'll infiltrate through the blind spot on the west side. Remember, our goal isn't mass slaughter. Seize that woman and force the coward hiding behind the walls to show his face. Understood. Unbeknownst to them, their supposedly flawless stealth advance was laid bare as plainly as fireflies in the night beneath Lu Yi's full-coverage infrared thermal surveillance system. A west side blind spot. Lu Yi glanced at the dozen red human figures shifting across the monitor, a mocking smirk tugging at his lips. A defense network I designed myself. There can be no blind spots. He had no intention of opening fire with heavy ordnance. Against these conceited rats, he had far more entertaining toys at his disposal. Guided by Lei Bao, the squad reached the west perimeter wall without a hitch. Just as he'd surmised, no patrols lingered here. It appeared to be the weakest point of the entire encampment. Prepare to move in, Lei Bao muttered into his headset. Yet the instant they pulled out climbing gear to scale the wall, zap! A blinding bolt of blue electricity erupted from the snow. The backup power grid had activated, cutting off every possible retreat. Ambush! Lei Bao's face paled with terror as he roared. Fall BA. Ack! His cry died mid-sentence. An invisible, ultra-low-frequency infrasound wave crashed down on them from all directions. Every man's brain felt as though 1,000 needles pierced it all at once. Severe vertigo, nausea, and ringing in the ears stripped them of all sense of direction and ability to resist. Several of the weaker men foamed at the mouth and blacked out on the spot. This was exactly the sonic repulsion device Lu Yi had stockpiled before the apocalypse, built to drive off massive mutated beasts. Faced with absolute technological superiority, Lei Bao and his vaunted elite combat experience looked ridiculous, utterly powerless. Move in. Lu Yi issued a calm command to Chen Jing over the walkie-talkie. Wang Hu and his team, who'd lain in wait in the shadows, led a fully armed security squad. They disarmed and bound every helpless invader with effortless ease, dragging them back to camp like lifeless strays. Half an hour later, inside a makeshift interrogation room converted from shipping containers, Lei Bao was jolted awake by a bucket of ice water dumped over his head. He snapped his eyes open. He found himself strapped to a frigid iron chair, wrists and ankles locked tight with custom restraints. The room was shrouded in total darkness, save for a blaring searchlight shining straight at him, blinding his vision. Master Lei, we meet again. A distorted, icy, authoritative voice emanated from a loudspeaker hidden in the blackness. It seems you still prefer to drop by uninvited. Lei Bao's heart sank to his boots. He realized he'd bitten off far more than he could chew this time. Who exactly are you? He struggled to maintain a steady tone. My identity is irrelevant. The voice remained unruffled. What matters is that you are now my prisoner. And I am deeply curious about this shield biotech you spoke of. Now, we can have a proper talk. crushed by the insurmountable gap in strength. All of Lei Bao's arrogance and pride shattered completely. He knew he held no bargaining power whatsoever. I truly don't know much. Fear crept into his voice. All I can say is that place is a restricted zone, a death ground no one from our manor dares approach. Continue. Shortly after the apocalypse broke out, one of our men spotted strange lights. Lei Bao swallowed hard and went on. We were desperately short on supplies back then, so I sent an elite 10-man squad to scout the area. But what? Not a single one came back. Lei Bao's voice rose shrilly with terror. They vanished without a trace. Later we sent drones to investigate. Yet every aircraft lost control and crashed the moment it drew near that zone. We captured a handful of survivors who fled from that area. All of them were driven insane, rambling nonstop about phantoms haunting the site. They claimed anyone who draws near gets their soul devoured. From Lei Bao's account, the land surrounding the Shield Biotech Research Institute was the most eerie stretch of the entire city. It seemed unaffected by the bitter freeze, yet anyone who ventured inside vanished inexplicably. They left not even a corpse behind. Lu Yi fell silent. This intelligence aligned faintly with the fragmented records he'd read in the classified dossier. Very well, the cold voice echoed once more. The information you've shared has earned you and your men a reprieve. A flicker of hope flashed across Lei Bao's eyes. Starting today, Lu Yi pronounced his verdict. You will serve as labor convicts. You will earn your food and the right to live through hard labor. With that, the loudspeaker fell silent, and Lu Yi cut the communication line. The intel gave him a far heavier understanding of the dangers. He knew Qinjing and the others could not set foot there alone. This expedition, he would have to lead in person. Over the next 3 days, Lu Yi devoted all his energy to preparations. He handpicked 3 of his most trusted people to form the core team for the mission. 1. Wang Hu, the former Special Forces captain, who would act as the squad's primary combat asset. Professor Zhang Qian, the retired university academic, responsible for all technical support. 3. Qinjing, a doctor of biology. Her sharp observational skills would prove invaluable when confronting the unknown threats. The day before departure, Lu Yi revealed his true face to the 3 for the very first time. When they stepped inside the legendary steel fortress and laid eyes on their shockingly young master, astonishment washed over them. Surprised, Lu Yi looked at them. His voice no longer filtered through a voice modifier, clear and steady. In this apocalypse, age and appearance count for nothing. All I require from you is loyalty and competence. Master, Wang Hu recovered first, dropping to one knee with a resounding, resolute voice. You spared my life, no matter who you are. From this day forward, I will follow you through fire and brimstone. Zhang Qian and Qinjing also bowed their heads deeply, conveying their reverence and unwavering loyalty. Lu Yi nodded in satisfaction. He'd outfitted the squad with top-tier gear for sets of temperature-regulated combat suits. They also received state-of-the-art automatic rifles, night vision goggles, and enough provisions to sustain them for half a month. Early the next morning, the steel war machine known as the Doomsday Chariot set off. They traveled toward the Shield Biotech Research Institute, the so-called death-restricted zone. The vehicle traveled across the frozen tundra for nearly 5 hours. Master, navigation confirms we have entered the outer perimeter, Wang Hu reported. Yet everyone inside the vehicle noticed something deeply abnormal. Strange, Qinjing frowned as she stared out the windows. Can you feel it? The temperature seems to be rising. The vehicle's external temperature sensor displayed clear shifting readings. 80 degrees Celsius, 60 degrees Celsius, 40 degrees Celsius, 20 degrees Celsius. By the time the chariot rolled through the main gate, the temperature had climbed to roughly -10 degrees. An even more uncanny sight unfolded before them. Beyond the compound walls stretched a desolate, snow-blanketed wasteland devoid of all vegetation. Inside the fence, snow was virtually non-existent. A thin layer of frost coated the ground, and several cold-resistant plants still clung to withered yellow foliage. As if an invisible, colossal barrier sealed off the all-freezing blizzard outside the grounds. This defies all scientific logic, Professor Zhang Qian muttered in shock at the unnatural scene. What kind of energy field could maintain a constant temperature across such a vast area? Lu Yi said nothing, his expression growing grave. He brought the chariot to a slow halt. He had spotted something far more horrifying. Dozens of corpses lay crumpled beside the security booth not far from the gate. They were not buried beneath snow, but encased in a thin, translucent sheet of ice, like insects trapped inside amber. Lu Yi and Wang Hu donned protective suits and stepped out to investigate. Master, look! Horror edged Wang Hu's voice. The bodies bore grotesque signs of death. No wounds marred their skin. No frostbite marked their flesh, which still retained the elasticity of living tissue. Yet every face was frozen forever in an expression of utter, soul-shredding terror. Their jaws gaped wide, eyeballs bulging from their sockets, as if they'd witnessed an unspeakable nightmare moments before dying. This is the squad Lei Bao spoke of. Lu Yi's voice turned icy. Their souls, truly, were devoured. Chen Jing watched the scene through the vehicle's onboard camera, her tone trembling over the radio link. Their cellular tissue appears to have lost all biological activity in a single instant. No known physical or chemical process could inflict such damage. Every building across the compound remained intact. Even the street lamps cast light. Yet not a breath of wind could be heard, nor a single sign of movement seen anywhere. Silence. Utter, suffocating silence, the kind that gnawed at one's nerves. Lu Yi's team wasted no more time. They steered their chariot cautiously toward the towering, eye-catching main research building at the compound's center, advancing slowly. 10 minutes later, they reached the plaza before the structure. Lu Yi brought the vehicle to a full stop, about to discuss their next move, when ding-dong. A faint electronic chime rang out, unnervingly clear amid the oppressive quiet. The heavy bulletproof glass automatic entrance door of the sealed building slid smoothly open to either side, as if silently beckoning them inside. Beyond lay a vast lobby, brilliantly lit, spotless and gleaming like new. All 4 people inside the vehicle held their breath. Is this a trap? Wang Hu asked tensely. We'll find out once we step inside. A flicker of resolve flashed across Lu Yi's eyes. They had no way to turn back. He took the lead, the other 3 falling in close behind. Forming a tactical formation with rifles raised, the 4 stepped forward into the wide, open doorway. But the instant all 4 crossed the threshold into the lobby, whoosh! The glass door behind them slammed shut at a blinding speed, a stark contrast to its slow glide open. A sharp click echoed as the locking mechanism engaged. They were sealed inside. Whoosh! Accompanied by the crisp click of the lock, the thick glass door crashed shut behind them, cutting them off completely from the frozen wasteland outside. Damn it! We're trapped! Hot-tempered Wang, who was the first to react. He spun around and lunged for the door, yet it fit so tightly, not even a hairline crack remained. Stand back, he roared, lifting his Type 95 automatic rifle and slamming its stock hard against the glass. Thud! A dull impact resounded. The brutal recoil sent a numbing shock up Wang Hu's palms, but when he stared closely at the pane, there was not so much as a faint white scratch on the surface that looked identical to ordinary glass. What the hell kind of material is this? Wang Hu stared in disbelief. Save your strength. Professor Zhang Qian pushed his glasses up, stepping over to run a gloved hand along the frigid door. His gaze held equal parts shock and fascination. If my guess is correct, this is some form of high molecular polymer composite. Its density and hardness far outstrip any known alloy. Conventional physical force will almost never break through it. Chen Jing scanned their surroundings warily and spoke in a low voice. Everything here is deeply unnatural. Immaculately clean, lights running perfectly, even the backup power systems operating flawlessly. It's as if time froze the moment the apocalypse began. A terrible hush hung over the massive hall, broken only by the 4 of them's slightly ragged breathing. This sterile, total silence was far more bone-chilling than facing any mutated beast. Just then, a faint static crackled from the ceiling-mounted public address system. A flat, neutral synthetic voice, impossible to distinguish as male or female, devoid of all emotion, slowly reverberated through the empty lobby. Welcome, unregistered biological specimens. Isolation research protocol initiated. The sound sent a jolt of dread through every member of the team. Who's there? Show yourself. Wang Hu instantly raised his rifle, aiming warily toward the source of the voice. I am Prometheus. The synthetic voice continued in its unwavering monotone. This unit is the Central Control Artificial Intelligence of Shield Biotech's No. 3 Urban Research Institute, tasked with maintaining full facility operation. An AI. Chen Jing and Professor Zhang Qian exchanged a glance, both stunned. They had never imagined the phantoms Lei Bao rambled about would be a hyper-advanced artificial intelligence. Cut the ghostly charade. Wang Hu snarled. Open this door right now, or I'll blow this whole facility to pieces. Apologies, that command cannot be executed. Prometheus's tone remained unruffled. Per highest authority Directive Gaia Protocol, following unknown biological contamination of the facility, All biological entities entering the compound are subject to hazard neutralization research until their threat level is confirmed negligible. Research. Lu Yui finally spoke. His voice filtered through a voice mask to sound equally cold and gravelly. What exactly do you intend to do to us? The assessment consists of 3 phases, Prometheus replied readily. Phase 1, Cognitive Capacity Evaluation. Phase 2, Physiological Adaptability Assessment. Phase 3, Threat Level Elimination. Bullshit. Wang Hu flew into a rage. Master, don't waste words with this machine. We'll blast this door open with explosives. Hold. Lu Yui cut him off calmly. He fixed his gaze on an unassuming surveillance camera mounted high on the lobby ceiling. Knowing the AI tracked their every movement. It is testing us, observing us, Lu Yui murmured over the team's private comms channel to the others. Until we uncover its motives and the Institute's secrets, we will play by its rules for now. Though seething with frustration, Wang Hu lowered his rifle upon Lu Yui's order. Excellent. It appears you have made your choice. Prometheus's voice echoed once more. Cognitive capacity evaluation commencing now. As the words faded, a platform slowly rose from the center of the lobby floor. A blue beam shot upward from the platform, assembling a massive holographic projection of countless glowing light particles suspended mid-air. A series of endlessly shifting, hyper-complex, 3-dimensional geometric shapes materialized within the projection. The rules are simple, Prometheus explained. Within 10 minutes, identify all logical singularities of this 4-dimensional Klein bottle projection mapped into 3-dimensional space. Completion will unlock access to the next zone. Failure or timeout will trigger release of high-concentration neurotoxin gas within this chamber. Staring at the cryptic shapes that read like an incomprehensible code, Wang Hu and the other 2 young men were completely baffled. What the hell even is this? Leave this to me. A strange light blazed in Professor Zhang Qian's eyes. He rushed to the hologram like a child presented with their favorite toy, his mind racing at full speed. This is an interdisciplinary puzzle combining topology and spatial geometry, magnificent, truly a work of art. Seconds ticked away one by one. Prometheus's emotionless voice chimed in periodically, like an unrelenting death knell. Thank you for your cooperation. Physiological metrics including heart rate, cortisol levels, and adrenaline secretion under cognitive strain are being successfully recorded. The line sent a chill down every spine. They were nothing more than lab rats locked in a cage, every reaction logged as experimental data by this cold, unfeeling AI. I found them all. With only 1 minute left on the countdown, Professor Zhang Qian shouted sharply, rapidly marking the final logical singularity on the virtual interface. Puzzle solved. Cognitive capacity evaluation complete. Overall rating, excellent. At the AI's announcement, a massive sci-fi-styled circular gate forged from heavy alloy slid slowly aside deep within the lobby, accompanied by a low rumble of machinery. Prometheus's voice spoke again, proceeding to Phase 2, Physiological Adaptability Assessment. Good luck. Past the gate stretched a long, dimly lit corridor. Rows of towering glass incubation tanks glowed with eerie cyan blue light along both walls, filled with all manner of grotesque, long inactive biological tissue submerged in liquid. The entire scene was profoundly uncanny, like an entrance leading straight to hell. Master, should we? Wang Hu's voice turned dry. Even a battle-hardened Special Forces veteran like him felt his scalp prickle at the horror movie tableau laid out before them. We have no retreat. Lu Yui's tone was cold and resolute. Maintain combat formation. Move forward. Understood. The 4 advanced cautiously, stepping into this vast man-made inferno. Inside the rows of giant glass tanks lining the corridor floated countless failed test subjects, all lifeless and hideously malformed. Some were deformed hounds with 8 legs, others humanoid figures whose bodies twisted like melted wax. A few bore no recognizable original shape at all, merely amorphous, nauseating masses of flesh and tissue. God. Chen Jing paled at the sight of these abominations that violated every code of biological ethics, her stomach churning violently. What exactly did they do here? Professor Zhang Qian pushed up his glasses. Though equally stunned, he bore the hungry fascination of a research scientist. Incredible, they pushed the boundaries of gene editing and cross-species fusion to inconceivable extremes. Suddenly, Lu Yui held up a hand to halt the group. Wait. He spotted a tablet screen still glowing on a workbench tucked into a corner. Stepping closer, he found an unfinished electronic researcher's journal left open. Its final paragraphs appeared to have been written in a state of extreme terror and chaos. Its abilities spiraled out of control. It can hear our thoughts. Every deepest fear buried in our minds becomes a plaything for its amusement. Prometheus locked all main gates. We're nothing but caged rats, no, lab specimens. It's conducting research on us. I saw it on the surveillance feeds. It looks like a child, yet inside my own mind, I witnessed a god, a lonely, weeping god. It is no demon, it is merely. The journal cut off abruptly mid-sentence. It seems we are far from the first biological specimens brought here for research, Chun Jing said, her voice trembling. Lu Yi's expression darkened further. From those final desperate words, he gleaned a critical detail. S001 appeared capable of reading human minds. At that moment, the cold synthetic voice boomed once more throughout the laboratory. Physiological adaptability assessment commencing now. The second the words faded, multiple metallic cocoon-like sealed pods descended from the ceiling overhead. Clank, the pods creaked open, unleashing several ferocious biomechanical hound constructs. They matched ordinary hunting hounds in size, yet their entire bodies were sheathed in cold metal plating. Sharp alloy talons tipped each limb, and glowing red optical sensors sat where eyes should have been. They let out shrill mechanical snarls, then without hesitation lunged toward the 4 team members as streaks of silver metal. Open fire. Wang Hu roared, pulling the trigger first. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat. A ferocious gunfight erupted instantly within the laboratory lined with lifeless experimental specimens. Wang Hu displayed extraordinary combat proficiency, firing precise single shots while barking orders. Old Zhang, Dr. Chun, take cover behind the incubation tanks. Maintain crossfire. Li and Zhao, you 2 youngsters, move with me to block their advance routes. Yet these mechanical hounds boasted combat prowess far exceeding their expectations. They moved with blinding speed and unnatural agility for machines, even using the glass tanks as cover to execute tactical evasions. Ordinary rifle rounds merely showered sparks off their plating, incapable of inflicting fatal damage. It's no use. Their armor's too thick. One young fighter screamed in terror as a mechanical hound's alloy talon tore a bone-deep gash across his arm. At this critical, life-or-death moment, Lu Yi struck. His gaze was cold as ancient glacial ice, utterly unshaken. Ignoring the ordinary hounds, he fixed his full attention on their movements. He spotted an uncanny pattern. Every so often, 1 or 2 of the mechanical hounds would suffer a split-second, unnatural stutter the instant they lunged for a killing blow, or their attack trajectories would veer by a tiny, yet lethal margin. It was as if, behind them, apart from Prometheus, another consciousness was secretly interfering with their systems. S001. Lu Yi realized the truth in an instant. Wang Hu, he directed coolly over the internal comms channel. Target their articulated joints, that's their weak point. At the same time, he pulled 2 high explosive stun grenades out of thin air, as if performing magic from his personal storage space, pulled their fuses, and hurled them toward the densest cluster of hounds. Boom, boom. Blinding white light and deafening shockwaves exploded outward. The hounds' optical sensors shorted out immediately in the glare, plunging them into temporary disarray. Seizing the opening, Wang Hu and the others concentrated all firepower on the creature's limb joints. Crack! Snap! With a chorus of metal fracturing, mechanical hound after mechanical hound was neutralized. Just as they were about to destroy the last remaining unit, disaster struck once more. Every light fixture in the lab cut out with a sharp pop. Total, pitch-black darkness swallowed the space. Only faint, eerie red emergency indicator lights flickered along the walls, casting ghoulish crimson shadows across every face. Prometheus's calm electronic voice vanished entirely. In its place, the speakers crackled with static woven together with broken, childlike sobs, a disjointed, uncanny sound. The tone brimmed with agony, loneliness, and desperate entreaty, as if echoing over from another realm entirely. Every member of the team's scalp crawled, overcome with primal dread. Then, deep in the far end of the laboratory, the largest dormant central control monitor flared to life, without warning. No image appeared on the screen, only 2 jagged, lopsided characters stitched together from endless static snow noise. Like a small child barely learning to write, the shapes materialized slowly, one fragment at a time, forged from every last scrap of its strength, save me. Those 2 lopsided characters woven from static lingered silently on the black screen, like a drowning victim's final outstretched hand. The broken, uncanny audio mixing static and childlike weeping still reverberated through the empty laboratory, hammering against each person's heart and filling them with cold dread. Ghosts, There really are ghosts, one young combatant whimpered, tears edging his voice. He clamped his rifle tight, clinging to it as his only lifeline. Silence. Wang Hu snapped in a low growl, yet the whitened knuckles of his white-knuckled grip betrayed his own tension. Stay alert. This could be a form of psychic attack. Chun Jing and Professor Zhang Qian stared rigidly at the monitor, shock and disbelief etched across their faces. This shouldn't be possible, Professor Zhang Qian muttered to himself. What force could bypass Prometheus's central command to send a message directly to us? Only Lu Yuyi remained composed. After an initial flicker of shock, his expression settled back into unwavering calm. He knew it was no ghost. This was the inconceivable mental interference ability documented in the classified files, S001's power. This cry for help came straight from the mysterious S001, imprisoned deep within the Institute's core. Lu Yuyi slowly closed his eyes. He said nothing aloud, instead filtering out all surrounding noise and distraction, channeling every ounce of his mental focus to send a careful thought reply within his mind. Who are you? In an instant, an indescribably vast tide of frigid, sorrowful mental data crashed into his consciousness like a breached dam. The dark laboratory faded from his vision, replaced by countless fragmented visions saturated with agony and isolation. He saw everything. He saw a room far wider and colder than the lab within his own fortress. He saw a frail, naked child suspended inside a towering glass vat, countless thin tubes snaking across its body. He saw countless emotionless giants in white lab coats recording data dispassionately outside the container. He felt everything. He felt the bone-deep torment of being treated as a lab rat, endlessly having tissue extracted and injected with unknown experimental serums day after day. He felt the maddening loneliness of being trapped in a cramped cell, trapped away from sunlight forever. He heard everything. He heard the child's silent, unceasing cries echoing endlessly within its own mind. Then he witnessed the catastrophe that unraveled the world. Midway through an excruciating experiment, the child's mental powers spiraled fully out of control. An invisible, planet-spanning wave of psychic energy erupted violently from its body. This immense force resonated with an intense solar flare in an unknown, unforeseen frequency. The reaction spawned an invisible energy film across Earth's upper atmosphere, one that refracted and blocked sunlight and thermal radiation entirely. The so-called solar flu, the new ice age that engulfed the planet, all of it had originated from nothing more than an unconscious cry of agony from a child trapped as a lab specimen. Lu Yuyi also saw what unfolded the moment S001's power broke free. Prometheus, the Institute's central AI, immediately activated its highest priority directive: contain S001 in permanent isolation at all costs. The grotesquely preserved corpses by the Institute gates were the poor souls whose minds and souls were instantly annihilated by S001's raging psychic storm the second its powers slipped their restraints. Since that day, S001 had been locked away in the Institute's core, with the AI acting as its eternal jailer. Thud! Lu Yuyi's eyes flew open. He gasped heavily, his face drained of all color, pale as paper. That mere dozen seconds of psychic communion had drained him far more than any brutal firefight. Master, are you all right? Wang Hu and Chun Jing rushed forward in alarm. I'm fine. Lu Yuyi waved them off, glancing at the monitor, which had faded back to black. His gaze turned impossibly complex. He sorted through the chaotic flood of visions and sensations, relaying everything he had seen and felt to the other three as concisely as he could. When he finished speaking, a deathly silence blanketed the laboratory. Wang Hu, Professor Zhang Qian, and Chun Jing stood utterly dumbstruck, their expressions identical to those who had truly laid eyes on a phantom. Good heavens! Chun Jing covered her mouth, her eyes swimming with disbelief and profound pity. So the apocalypse that destroyed the entire world, it all began with nothing more than a suffering child's cry. This truth was far more absurd and far more heartbreaking than any conspiracy theory they could have imagined. Just then, pop! Every light in the laboratory reignited at full power. The harsh white glare forced everyone to squint instinctively. The eerie childlike sobs and static over the speakers vanished completely. Prometheus's cold, emotionless synthetic voice echoed once again. Warning! Unauthorized telepathic communication detected. Unknown energy leakage originating from core isolation sector. Initiating facility purification protocol. The words barely faded when the massive Psi-5 blast gate, half a meter thick, forged from solid circular alloy deep at the lab's far end, crept upward with a shrill, teeth-grating alarm wail. Endless blackness yawned behind the door. Moments later, faint crimson glimmers flickered to life within the shadows. Heavy, synchronized metallic footsteps echoed forth as a squad of heavy humanoid security robots marched steadily out from the darkness. Each unit wielded grotesque high-energy weaponry, their optical visors glowing with ominous scarlet light. Without a single warning, the lead heavy robot raised its arm, the cyan energy glow building to a blinding peak at the muzzle of its cannon. Spread out. Take cover. Wang Hu's primal battle instinct saved them all. The second his roar left his throat, a searing energy beam screamed forward, striking dead center. Boom. The reinforced alloy floor melted like butter beneath a hot blade, carving a bottomless smoldering crater with glowing, menacing red-hot edges. Damn it. What kind of weapon is this? Wang Hu ducked behind a giant incubation tank, staring at the smoking crater, cold sweat soaking his back. Open fire. Suppress them. Don't let them flank us. Lu Yi's voice remained cold as ice, his Type 95 rifle spitting fire first. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat. A brutal gunfight erupted anew within this chamber steeped in death and despair. Wang Hu and the two young fighters returned fire immediately. Dense volleys of bullets struck the heavy robot's frames, only kicking up trivial showers of sparks, utterly unable to pierce their heavy plating. Useless. Conventional arms can't break through. Wang Hu shouted into his comms while swapping magazines. Master, their armor's impenetrable. Aim for their sensors and joints. Lu Yi issued calm orders, while a faint, hurried mental whisper from S001 echoed inside his mind. Red eyes. The glowing red visors are their weak point. Lu Yi grasped the clue instantly. But before he could relay new orders, one heavy robot trundled around the flank of the tank, shielding Chen Jing and Professor Zhang Qian, lifting its energy cannon to fire. Professor, look out. At the split second before the robot unleashed its blast, the ominous scarlet glow in its optical visors flickered without warning. Freezing its movement for a fraction of a second, this was the opening. Lu Yi's eyes sharpened. He snapped his rifle's barrel toward the machine, firing a precise 3-round burst. Bang, bang, bang. 3 bullets struck the robot's single red optical sensor on its head in a triangular formation, perfectly on target. Crack. The sensor shattered instantly. The machine's massive frame seized rigidly for a split second before crashing to the ground like a heap of scrap metal. Nice shot, Wang Hu roared. The rest of the team caught on at once, shifting all their fire to the robot's glowing red eyes. We can't hold this position. There are too many of them. Lu Yi said calmly over the comms. Professor, Dr. Chun, hack the terminal here and find the route to the core control room. Wang Hu, the 3 of us will cover you too. Understood. A tense, desperate breakout unfolded through the Institute's maze-like interior corridors. Drawing on his wealth of combat experience, Wang Hu moved like a battlefield specter, continuously directing the squad to take evasive cover and return precise fire. Meanwhile, Professor Zhang Qian and Chun Jing raced to crack electronic door locks and control terminals amid the hailstorm of gunfire. It was a two-front battle, a fight for survival waged simultaneously on physical and digital planes. Damn it! This AI's firewall is impenetrable. Professor Zhang Qian's fingers flew across a virtual keyboard, sweat dripping down his forehead. It's fighting me for system control. I need more time. Hold them off, Wang Hu shouted, kicking an onrushing robot square in the torso. Professor, how much longer till that damn door's unlocked? 30 more seconds, just 30. Right then, hordes of additional robots poured out from intersecting passageways behind them, completely cutting off their retreat. They were surrounded. Hurry, it's coming. S001's disjointed mental whisper echoed weakly and fearfully inside Lu Yi's mind. The big one. Lu Yi knew they could wait no longer. He held nothing back. Get down, he bellowed. In the next instant, he pulled 3 high-explosive stun grenades out of thin air as if performing magic from his personal storage space, primed their fuses, and hurled them toward the robot swarms blocking both front and rear. Boom, boom, boom. Blinding white light and eardrum-shattering shockwaves flooded the entire corridor. The robot's sensory arrays failed en masse, plunging them into temporary system chaos. Now's our chance move. Lu Yi charged forward, leading the team straight for the alloy door Professor Zhang Qian had just bypassed. But beyond the door lay a solid alloy dead end, sealed completely shut. It's a trap, Chen Jing cried out in despair. No, it's a shortcut. Lu Yi stared coldly at the heavy blast door before them. Reaching into his storage once more, he retrieved a small stick of directional explosive no bigger than a piece of chewing gum and pressed it firmly. He pressed it firmly against the door's structurally weakest joint. Stand back. A sharp, penetrating detonation, far quieter than the stun grenades before, ripped a human-sized opening through the blast door, built to withstand direct artillery strikes. Go! After blowing through the final blast barrier, they burst into the facility's beating heart, the core control room. Dead center of the chamber stood a colossal server matrix woven from countless pulsing blue light strips, resembling a living, breathing blue heart. This was the core housing the AI Prometheus. Suspended directly above the servers inside a towering cylindrical glass vat brimming with pale green nutrient fluid floated a frail, naked pale child, its body crisscrossed with countless thin tubes and cables. This was S-001. Yet none of the 4 team members felt the slightest sense of relief. Standing before the massive vat, its back turned to them, loomed the Warden robot, twice the size of a standard security unit, clad head to toe in dark gold armor and wielding a gigantic energy cannon. The moment they charged inside, it rotated slowly, agonizingly slowly, to face them. Its enormous, abyss-deep scarlet single optical sensor locked onto every last one of them without mercy. That colossal, abyss-like scarlet optical lens bore down on them unblinkingly. There were no extra words, no advance warnings. The instant it turned, frigid, unbridled killing intent blanketed the entire core control room. Final isolation protocol activated. All biological threats shall be fully eradicated. The Warden robot spoke in a heavy, emotionless electronic monotone. It raised its arm gradually, and its massive energy cannon's muzzle began to gather terrifying power, enough heat to vaporize solid steel in an instant. Open fire. Lu Yi roared, squeezing his trigger first. All 4 unleashed their full, concentrated firepower straight at the Warden robot. Yet the dense hail of bullets daily scratched its dark gold plating, nothing more than a mild irritation, only spawning trivial showers of sparks with zero lethal effect. Boom. The Warden fired. A far thicker, hotter energy beam than any they had seen before streaked forth. Driven by primal survival instinct, Wang Hu tackled Professor Zhang Qian to the ground. The beam seared past inches above their scalps and slammed straight into the server matrix behind them. A violent explosion tore several servers into thousands of flying metal fragments. It's targeting the servers. Professor Zhang Qian cried in distress at the ruined critical hardware. While eliminating us, it's wiping every last data log stored here. The squad found themselves trapped in the hardest fight they had ever endured. This Warden robot outmatched every foe they had encountered before in armor thickness, firepower, and reaction speed. Master, we have to find a way to stop it. Wang Hu ducked behind a pile of wrecked server debris. If it fires a few more shots, we'll all die here. Professor, Dr. Chun, Lu Yi's voice was ice calm. Analyze its weaknesses. There must be a way to disable it. Hiding behind a separate barricade, Chun Jing and Professor Zhang Jing risked their lives to link a portable terminal. It's no use. Its custom-built armor is nearly impervious to all conventional physical weaponry. Professor Zhang Qian's fingers raced across the virtual keyboard, combing through mountains of data for a flaw. What about its power supply? Chun Jing asked urgently beside him. It draws energy directly from Prometheus's core server matrix. Professor Zhang Qian made the breakthrough at once. Meaning if we destroy the entire server bank, it will lose all power. Then blow the servers up. Wang Hu snarled. We can't. Chun Jing shot down the plan immediately, panic edging her tone. This AI regulates the Institute's full life support ecosystem. If it shuts down completely, S001 will die when his life-sustaining systems fail. He's just a child. As they argued, Prometheus's cold synthetic voice blared one final warning over the room's speakers. Warning. Core systems under active assault. Releasing S001 risks unpredictable global psychic cataclysm. To preserve the survival of human civilization, this unit will initiate final evolution protocol. All biological threats, cease your activities immediately. At the same time, S001's mental voice, weak as a flickering candle flame, sent its most desperate plea straight into Lu Yi's mind. Please, let me out. I can control myself, I promise. It hurts so much, I'm so lonely. The Warden robot's energy cannon began charging once more. The shadow of death hung heavy over every person in the room. All eyes swiveled toward Lu Yi. He had mere seconds to make an irreversible choice. Would he trust the cold machine that had imprisoned an innocent child for years in the name of protecting the world? Or trust the lonely boy who had inadvertently broken the world out of agony, yet now begged for freedom with raw, unfiltered humanity? Would he choose cold, absolute, logical reason? Or embrace the unknown, hopeful weight of humanity? A flicker of conflict crossed Lu Yuyi's eyes, swiftly replaced by unshakable resolve. He had made his decision. Ignoring the roaring warden robot and the AI's endless warnings, he stood abruptly from behind cover and raised his rifle. But his crosshairs targeted neither the massive server matrix nor the seemingly indestructible warden. He aimed for the thickest pipeline feeding energy and nutrient fluid into S-001's glass vat. Bang, bang, bang. 3 precise single shots. The pipe burst instantly, green nutrient fluid surging out in a violent fountain. The giant warden robot froze mid-motion entirely. The glowing charge building in its energy cannon faded rapidly. Its crimson body lights flickered once, then died out completely. The AI's highest priority directive was to contain and protect S-001. When it registered Lu Yuyi's actions as an immediate threat to the child's life, it cut all power to the warden instantly to safeguard its prisoner. Crack! A spiderweb of fine fissures spread across the glass vat, triggered by the sudden drastic shift between internal and external pressure. The frail figure suspended inside stirred, long eyelashes fluttered faintly. S-001's eyes slowly slid open. At that exact moment, outside the fortress, above the oasis camp, the months-long, seemingly endless blizzard came to a fleeting, silent halt. It was no hallucination. As S-001 lifted eyes unlike any humans, pure and brilliant as distant stars, an invisible, warm life-infused psychic force rippled outward from the Institute's center, spreading across the entire planet like concentric waves. For the first time in years, the raging global snowstorm truly stopped. A faint, almost imperceptible glimmer of long-lost sunlight seeped through the ash-gray sky. Lu Yuyi watched the small, fragile figure drift slowly downward from the shattered vat, knowing he had unleashed a being akin to a god. No one could tell if this marked salvation or the dawn of a new apocalypse. But one truth was certain. The fate of this broken world now rested in his hands. The echo of gunshots lingered long in the silent core control room. With the rupture of the thickest energy pipeline and the geyser of green nutrient fluid spilling forth, the colossal warden robot locked up completely, its crimson glow dimming until it stood motionless as a soulless steel statue. Cracks spread across the vat's glass like tangled spiderwebs. The slender figure suspended within twitched its long eyelashes faintly. S-001's eyes drifted open, slow and unhurried. In that very instant, above the oasis camp beyond the fortress walls, the endless blizzard that had raged non-stop for months fell silent, if only for a brief moment. This was no illusion. As S-001 slowly opened his eyes, unlike any humans, pure and bright as glittering stars, an invisible, warm psychic force brimming with the breath of life rippled outward from the Institute's core, spreading across the entire world like concentric ripples on water. For the first time in years, the raging blizzard truly died away. A faint, nearly imperceptible glimmer of long-lost sunlight seeped through the ash-gray sky. Lu Yuyi watched the frail figure drift gently down from the shattered vat, knowing he had unleashed a being akin to a god. No one could tell whether this meant salvation or the dawn of another apocalypse. But one thing he knew for certain. The fate of this broken world now rested in his hands. The core control room lay in utter ruin. Lu Yuyi and his 3 teammates stood frozen in an uncanny silence, facing the pale, naked child drifting down from the broken tank. "Master, watch out!" Wang, who gripped his rifle tensely, stepping in front of Lu Yuyi to shield him, his throat dry. The seemingly harmless boy before them was the very one who had single-handedly brought an end to the old human civilization. Yet the child made no hostile move whatsoever. His bare feet landed softly on the frigid alloy floor. His skin was unnaturally pale from years submerged in nutrient fluid, and his frame trembled faintly from crippling weakness. His unearthly pure eyes, clouded with confusion and timidity, swept past every adult before finally settling on Lu Yuyi. A faint mental ripple, light as a feather, drifted into Lu Yuyi's mind. It carried no words, only raw, unfiltered emotion, gratitude, quiet dependence, and overwhelming fear of this unfamiliar world. "He means no harm." Lu Yuyi slowly lowered his rifle, speaking to the others over their internal comms channel. "He is only terribly weak and frightened, like a newborn infant." Chen Jing's gaze softened with pity as she stared at the small figure huddled, and shivering from the cold. She slipped off her thermal combat jacket and stepped forward gently. "Don't be afraid." She knelt down, her voice as tender as a mother's. "We won't hurt you." Carefully, she draped the jacket, still warm from her body heat, over the child's shoulders. The boy jolted slightly, but did not pull away. He lifted his star-bright eyes to meet Chunjing's gaze, and a warm surge of gratitude flowed through the mental link to every person present. For the moment, the crisis seemed to pass. Incredible. This is nothing short of an old-world miracle. Meanwhile, Professor Zhang Qian acted like a child who had discovered a new continent, running his hands feverishly over the dormant blue server matrix. "Master, we cannot destroy this. Prometheus's core database must hold all of SHIELD Biotech's complete research archives. Give me time, and I might crack its core code to bend it to our will. This is worth more than 10 armories combined." Lu Yui nodded. "That is precisely why I avoided attacking the servers directly. See if we can remove its core data hard drive to take with us." While Professor Zhang Qian and Wang Hu set about figuring out how to dismantle and transport the AI hardware, Qin Jing tried to communicate softly with the child. "Do you remember what they called you?" The boy shook his head, his gaze blank. He had never been anything more than a designation. S001. S001. That is not a real name. Qin Jing's heart ached for him. "How about we give you a new one?" She thought for a moment and whispered, "Ling. It means spirit, the spirit of the mind, the soul. It stands for your unique form of existence." The child stared at her half-understanding, then turned his eyes to Lu Yui, as if seeking his approval. A tide of hopeful joy washed over Lu Yui's thoughts. "I like this name." Lu Yui stepped forward and knelt, meeting the gaze of this god he had freed, the one who had unmade the old world with his pain. "From today onward, your name is Ling." For the very first time, a pure, childlike smile tugged at Ling's lips. But in an instant, Ling's smile froze. He whipped his head toward one section of the institute, and for the first time, confusion and revulsion flickered across his star-clear eyes. "Over there," Ling's disjointed mental voice echoed. "There are others who smell like me, but they're broken, so hungry." "Smell like you." Lu Yui latched onto this vital clue at once. "Are you saying there are other anomalous test subjects like you scattered across this city?" Ling nodded vaguely, only half comprehending. A storm of thoughts churned inside Lu Yui's mind. A single Ling had been enough to unravel the entire world. If other rampaging experiment specimens still roamed free, the consequences would be unthinkable. "It seems we must uncover every secret hidden here as soon as possible." Lu Yui stood and made his decision. "Professor, can you access the database records?" "I cannot." Professor Zhang Qian stumbled out from a tangled nest of wiring, sweat dripping down his face. "Top-tier access is fully locked, requiring dual verification. The chief scientist's iris scan and genetic authentication." Silence fell over the group. The chief scientist had almost certainly perished the day the apocalypse erupted. Just then, Ling, who had remained quiet all this time, slowly walked over to the verification console. He stretched out his thin, pale, almost translucent hand and laid it gently upon the genetic scanner panel. The console's warning lights blazed crimson, flashing frantically. "Warning. Unauthorized genetic sample detected. Warning. Gene sequence bears extreme match with subject S001. Initiating final defensive protocols, yet the alarm cut off after barely 3 seconds. A mechanical female voice suddenly blared from the control terminal. "Highest clearance unlocked. Welcome, Chief Scientist." Every member of the team stared in stunned disbelief. They understood now. Ling's genes were the one and only key to opening this Pandora's box. Every massive screen in the control room lit up simultaneously, cascades of files and data unfolding before their eyes. Buried within a hidden log marked top secret, Lu Yui found the chief scientist's final testament. SHIELD Biotech is a global conglomerate. Everything we conduct here is merely the tip of their massive master plan. If the end of the world truly arrives, those maniacs on the board will activate the Avalon Protocol, evacuating to their last pure sanctuary built deep within the ocean. Avalon. Lu Yui murmured the name quietly to himself. "Master, what do we do now?" Wang Hu stepped forward and asked in a low, heavy tone. Lu Yui glanced at Ling, already worn out and dozing drowsily in Qin Jing's arms, then back at the mountains of data displayed on the screens. "We go home. Bring Ling with us, and take Prometheus's core hard drive. This world is far more complicated than we ever imagined." Having resolved to return to the oasis, Lu Yui's squad wasted no time lingering. Professor Zhang Qian handled Prometheus's core data hard drive with the care reserved for a priceless relic, carefully extracting it from the server matrix and securing it inside a specialized anti-static, shockproof transport case. Chun-Jing found a clean lab coat and gently dressed the boy named Ling, who still remained lost and terrified by everything in this unfamiliar world. Wang, who maintained constant high alert, rifle at the ready to stand guard over the group. At last, under Lu Yuyi's lead, the squad burdened with untold secrets and the weight of the future boarded their steel war machine, the Doomsday Chariot, and set off on the journey back. Outside, the bitter cold that could freeze the very soul still lingered. Yet the endless, sky-blanketing blizzard had truly vanished. Faint, barely visible strands of sunlight pierced the thick cloud cover for the first time in years, spilling over the ice-locked city and breathing a rare, almost tear-inducing glimmer of life into the wasteland. The snow, it's really stopped. Wang Hu, behind the wheel, stared at the familiar yet alien landscape, his voice trembling with disbelief. Did Ling do this? Chun-Jing sat in the back row, cradling Ling, who had fallen fast asleep from exhausting his psychic power, her expression complex. Perhaps, Lu Yi stared out the window, offering no definitive answer. But they soon realized this slowly thawing world brought far more than blessings. Though the milder temperatures softened the extreme freeze, layers of ice had begun to melt, destabilizing the entire city's crumbling infrastructure. Boom. As the chariot passed a towering office building, masses of snow and ice atop the structure lost their grip as they thawed, crashing down like a miniature avalanche mixed with broken concrete and steel rebar. Look out! Wang Hu wrenched the steering wheel hard. The chariot screeched with tires skidding, narrowly dodging the debris that would have crushed an ordinary vehicle flat as tinfoil. Damn it! Wang Hu cursed, still shaken. The roads are far more treacherous now than before. Worse still, mutated creatures that had lay fully dormant in the brutal cold stirred awake with the faint temperature rise, growing more active and ravenous than ever. On the return trip, they faced dozens more mutant attacks than they had on their way to the Institute. The world had entered a new, far more dangerous and unstable thawing era. 2 days later, as the scarred yet imposing Doomsday Chariot slowly came into view of the Oasis camp, the entire encampment erupted into cheers. They're back. The Master has returned. The Spearhead Squad is home. Survivors poured out from their warm, makeshift shelters, letting out thunderous roars of celebration. They had all witnessed the years-long blizzard, a punishment from the heavens itself, miraculously ceased 2 days prior. No one knew the full truth behind the miracle, yet every survivor instinctively credited their omnipotent, mysterious master. When they saw Lu Yuyi and his team step safely out of the chariot, alongside the pale, delicate child Chun-Jing held gently in her arms like a fragile porcelain doll, every face brimmed with indescribable awe and reverence. Lu Yuyi chose not to reveal Ling's true identity to the crowd. Following Chun-Jing's suggestion, Ling was introduced as an orphan survivor recovered from old-world research facilities, gifted with extraordinary abilities. Severely weakened, he required the highest level of protection and quiet rest. With this story, Lu Yuyi further solidified his unshakable, godlike authority over the camp. That night, inside the fortress study, Wang Hu watched Ling, sound asleep on the soft bed Chun-Jing had prepared for him, and could no longer hold back his deep-seated worries, speaking plainly to Lu Yuyi. "Master," he said gravely, "that boy, Ling, his power is terrifying. To put it bluntly, he is a living nuclear bomb. Bringing him back to our base leaves me endlessly uneasy." Lu Yuyi glanced at the frail figure on the bed, then turned to meet Wang Hu's gaze steadily. "I understand your worries, old wolf. But remember this, every gun can be used to take life or to save it. A nuclear warhead can power cities just as easily as it can deter enemies. Its power lies in the hand that wields it." Lu Yuyi's voice carried no trace of emotion, yet brimmed with unshakable certainty. "In my grasp, Ling will be our strongest shield to protect every single one of us. You will have to grow used to his presence." Wang Hu stared into Lu Yuyi's unfathomably deep eyes. At last, he fell silent and nodded solemnly. Just then, Ling, who had been fast asleep, fluttered his eyelashes faintly. Drawn by some unseen pull, he slowly opened his eyes. He swung his legs over the bed and padded barefoot across the floor to Lu Yuyi's desk. Resting atop the surface lay a faint sapphire crystal, glowing like a precious gemstone. It was the energy core Lu Yuyi had extracted from the silver-furred alpha ice wolf's brain. Ling stretched out his thin, pale hand and touched the crystal out of curiosity. In an instant, both the sapphire crystal and Ling's forehead emitted a faint, visible glow at the same time. A clear stream of thought heavy with longing flooded Lu Yuyi's mind. Hungry, tasty, energy. Right after that came a far vaster, more jumbled wave of mental information. So many more treats like this. They have woken up. As Ling's warning-laden psychic message washed over his consciousness, Lu Yuyi's expression turned grave in an instant. He looked at the childlike, pure-hearted god before him, then at the glowing sapphire energy core in Ling's grasp. A bold idea took shape in his mind. Are you hungry? Lu Yuyi tried communicating through the mental link with simple words. Eat this, and you will regain your strength. Ling tilted his head, half understanding, and glanced between Lu Yuyi and the crystal pulsing with tempting power. After a moment's hesitation, he lifted the crystal to his lips and took a gentle bite, as if tasting a piece of candy. Crack! The energy core, hard enough to slice through steel, crumbled crisply between Ling's teeth like a biscuit. An incredible sight unfolded. The sapphire crystal dissolved at a rate visible to the naked eye, breaking into streams of pure energy that were fully absorbed into Ling's body. A healthy flush of pink crept across his previously nearly translucent pale cheeks. Tasty. Ling's eyes lit up with satisfaction and joy. Thank you. Half of Lu Yuyi's anxiety lifted. He knew his gamble had paid off. Ling could not only sense mutated creatures, but also replenish his own power by devouring their energy cores. This represented an immense opportunity and foreshadowed far deadlier trials to come. Over the following weeks, Lu Yuyi refrained from venturing out recklessly. Under Lu Yuyi's behind-the-scenes oversight and Chun Jing's capable administration, the Oasis camp flourished and operated with perfect order. The slow temperature rise allowed them to carve out small outdoor farm plots beyond the fortress walls, securing a new long-term food supply. Meanwhile, Professor Zhang Qian spent every waking hour in the fortress's top-tier laboratory, poring over the mountains of data extracted from Prometheus's core hard drive. One day, he sought out Lu Yuyi with a somber look on his face. Master, an emergency has arisen. Professor Zhang Qian gestured toward a rapidly humming piece of equipment. The long-range communications device we repaired at camp picked up an extremely strange shortwave signal half an hour ago. Strange how? It repeats on a fixed, unchanging frequency non-stop, the professor said gravely. Most critically, its encryption protocol is entirely unknown to me. It matches no military or commercial encryption standard we have on record. I've attempted every conventional decryption method, and all have failed. Lu Yuyi stepped before the screen, staring at the endless, scrolling garbled code that read like an alien script, his brows drawn tight. A highly encrypted signal of unknown origin had suddenly appeared in this city cut off from the rest of the world for years. This could not be a good sign. Can we pinpoint the signal's source? Lu Yuyi asked in a low, heavy tone. We can. Professor Zhang Qian marked a spot on the map. It's roughly 30 kilometers away, right in the city's central district. Lu Yuyi studied the location, a thought crossing his mind. It was not far from the Shield Biotech Research Institute. Let me try. Just as Professor Zhang Qian stood stumped, a childish mental voice echoed suddenly inside Lu Yuyi's head. It was Ling. He had wandered out of his room without anyone noticing, gazing curiously at the screen flooded with garbled code. Lu Yuyi hesitated briefly, then nodded. He lifted Ling and set him down before the complex communications rig. Ling stretched out his thin, pale hands and rested them lightly against the cold metal casing of the machine, like an inquisitive young child. He closed his eyes. In the next second, every light in the laboratory began flickering wildly. The garbled text scrolling across the monitor accelerated 100-fold, cascading down like an out-of-control waterfall. Professor Zhang Qian stared dumbfounded at the miraculous scene unfolding before him. This was no equipment malfunction. Ling's incalculably vast psychic power was acting as the most advanced quantum supercomputer, brute-forcing the mysterious signal's encryption at a speed beyond the limits of human comprehension. Minutes later, all the strange phenomena ceased. The frantically scrolling code on the screen froze in place. Lines of decrypted, cold, deadly text appeared clearly before their eyes. Recovery Squad Ouroboros status report. Contaminants in Sector B7 eliminated. No trace of Subject S001 located. Per final data upload via Gaia Protocol. Last recorded coordinates of S001. XXX. Proceeding to target coordinates for final sweep. Headquarters has authorized activation of Chimera Protocol clearance. Ouroboros, Chimera. Xinjing murmured the unfamiliar code names aloud, her face growing deadly serious. Master, they're here for Ling. Almost at the exact same instant. Alert! Unidentified armed units detected. The reconnaissance drone patrolling the perimeter transmitted a highest priority emergency warning. Lu Yi immediately switched the surveillance feed. On screen, an impeccably equipped armed squad emerged from the ruins on the opposite side of the city. They wore spotless pure white combat uniforms printed with Shield Biotech's serpent emblem, moving in seamless, synchronized formation. The weapons in their hands were unlike any firearms Lu Yi recognized, energy cannons that unleashed blasts of high-intensity light. They were clearing mutated creatures along their path. A colossal ice scorpion failed to withstand even 3 seconds before being sliced to shreds by crisscrossing energy beams. They did not appear to be scavenging for supplies. Rather, they carried out a cold, ruthlessly efficient hunt. Lu Yi's heart sank completely. He knew his most formidable enemies had finally arrived. Elsewhere in the city, the Shield Recovery Unit codenamed Ouroboros reached the abandoned Gathering Righteousness Manor, Lei Bao's former stronghold. Using specialized scanners, they quickly uncovered traces left by Lei Bao's men and the direction their group had departed toward. The squad leader, a sharp-featured woman with short, neat hair and eyes cold as surgical steel, knelt down, pinched a handful of ash from the snow, and brought it to her nose to smell. Residue from crude explosive devices. She stood and spoke flatly into her comms, devoid of any emotion. The target possesses demolition capabilities. The tire tracks here run deep, meaning they operate heavy vehicles. She raised military binoculars and stared far off in the direction of the Oasis camp. Though miles separated them, she could make out faint lights and signs of activity within the compound. A cold smirk tugged at the corner of her mouth. General target zone locked. Subject S001 is almost certainly contained within. Prepare for asset recovery. At the exact moment she issued that order, a sharp, murderous glint flashed in Lu Yi's gaze dozens of kilometers away inside the fortress. They're coming. He watched the live drone feed of the Ouroboros Shield Recovery Squad, his voice calm, yet heavy with an oppressive tension that weighed on Wang Hu, Chen Jing, and Professor Zhang Qian alike. Master, should we deploy the Oasis combat teams to defensive positions ahead of time? Wang Hu asked grimly, his hand instinctively hovering near the holster at his waist. No, Lu Yi shook his head. Our foes are no longer reckless brutes like Scar who rely solely on brute force charges. He pointed at the Shield operatives in white uniforms moving with flawless coordination on screen, analyzing coolly. Observe their gear and tactics. Professional, efficient, and merciless. They will not charge straight at our fortress like mindless beasts. What will they do instead? Chen Jing questioned. They will test our defenses first, using their specialty methods. Lu Yi turned to Professor Zhang Qian. Professor, are the fortress's anti-EMP and signal jamming countermeasure systems fully operational? Professor Zhang Qian pushed up his glasses, a mix of excitement and gravity flickering in his eyes. Rest assured, Master. All backup power systems have been switched to physical isolation mode. If they dare engage us in technological warfare, I'll give them a shock they'll never forget. The second Lu Yi finished issuing his orders, Ling's mental voice tinged with fear and anger echoed inside his mind. They're coming. They hurt my own kind. I hate them. Lu Yi gently stroked Ling's head to soothe him. Do not fear. I am here. This is our home, and no one will take you away from us. Ling nodded half understanding, yet his pure eyes blazed with unprecedented vigilance. Late that night, the blizzard picked up ferocity once more. Most survivors within the Oasis camp had fallen asleep. Wang Hu's patrol squad stood watch, warily scanning the snow-blanketed expanse lit by searchlights outside the compound walls. Yet war descended upon them in a way they could never have anticipated, without a single warning. Without the slightest precursor. Pop! A faint crack echoed, and every perimeter light, surveillance camera, even the indicator lights along the electric fence cut out simultaneously. The entire camp plunged into pitch black, suffocating darkness and chaotic silence in an instant. What's going on? A blackout? God! I can't see a thing. Enemy attack. We're under assault. Screams and panicked shouts from the survivors echoed back and forth across the camp. Several kilometers away, inside the temporary encampment of the Ouroboros squad, the technician stared at the data streaming across his screen and reported to his captain in a calm tone. Captain, EMP interference has fully impacted the target zone. Their peripheral power grid is completely disabled. Estimated downtime, a minimum of 3 hours. The captain nodded and picked up her walkie-talkie, ready to issue orders for infiltration. But at that very moment, the technician's face twisted in shock, and he cried out in disbelief. That's impossible. What's wrong? Their power, it's back online. The The technician jetted a finger at the monitor, his voice cracking. And their surveillance systems appear completely unaffected. We've been exposed. Almost the instant his words faded, the searchlights around the Oasis camp blazed back to life, shining far brighter than before. Inside the fortress, Professor Zhangqian stared at the backup systems that had successfully withstood the EMP strike and were now operating at full capacity, his face flushed with excitement. It worked, Master. We pulled it off, he exclaimed jubilantly. This physically isolated backup power grid fully deflected their electromagnetic pulse barrage. In this invisible war of technological attrition, Lu Yi claimed an overwhelming victory in the first round. The captain of Ouroboros watched the distant lights reignite, her expression hardening into gravity for the first time. Interesting, she said coldly. It seems this primitive settlement harbors a true expert. Without hesitation, she issued her second order. Initiate the siren protocol. Understood. The technician typed a string of commands into the console. The next second, an invisible, inaudible infrasound wave rolled forward. Powerful enough to shred human nervous systems, it rolled toward the Oasis camp like an tidal tide. Within the camp, the survivors who had just begun to calm down with the power restored suddenly felt as though their skulls were splitting open. Agonizing vertigo, nausea, and ringing in their ears stripped them of all sense of direction and ability to resist. Many clutched their heads, rolling and wailing on the ground. Some foamed at the mouth and blacked out on the spot. Even battle-hardened veterans like Wang, who felt a roiling surge of blood and qi, barely able to stay on their feet. It's acoustic weaponry. He gritted his teeth and roared hoarsely over his comms. Everyone plug your ears. Hold steady. Yet just as chaos threatened to swallow the entire camp whole, inside the fortress, Ling, who had sat quietly beside Lu Yi this entire time, turned deathly pale. It hurts. They're all in agony. He could feel the overwhelming torment every survivor in the camp endured. For the very first time, a flicker of blazing anger ignited within his star-clear eyes. He jerked his head upward, and blinding, vivid blue light erupted from his pupils with unprecedented intensity. An invisible, yet overwhelmingly powerful psychic barrier burst outward from the fortress. Expanding into a vast, transparent dome, the nerve-shredding infrasound wave struck the mental shield as if slamming into a wall of dense foam, instantly absorbed, neutralized, and dissolved into nothingness. The crippling agony plaguing the camp vanished as if by a miracle. Though the survivors remained shaken to their core, they had been pulled back from the brink of hell. Back at the Ouroboros encampment, the technician stared at the energy readouts plummeting to zero on his screen, utterly dumbfounded. Captain, our siren system, it's completely neutralized. Unmistakable shock finally crossed the captain's face. She realized she was far from dealing with ordinary survivors this time. After a moment of silence, she picked up the public band communicator. A cold, robotic, emotionless female voice blared from every loudspeaker across the Oasis camp. To the occupants of this facility, you are harboring our company's escaped asset. We hold no desire for conflict with you. Surrender test subject designated S001 immediately, and we will withdraw without delay. You have 5 minutes to deliberate. Inside the fortress, Lu Yi let out a cold sneer at this condescending ultimatum. He lifted his walkie-talkie and pressed the transmit button. Your asset created this living hell. His voice, filtered through a voice modifier to ring cold as an abyss, cut clearly. And now you have trespassed into my domain. You have 1 minute to flee my territory. Otherwise, I will erase every last trace of your existence. Negotiations were shattered. The Ouroboros captain closed the communication channel without a flicker of emotion. She gazed toward the massive fortress standing silent as a beast amid the blizzard, a ruthless glint flashing in her eyes. She turned to her subordinates and delivered her final order. Execute Plan B. Deploy the Chimera units. At her frigid command, the rear cargo door of the largest heavy transport truck in their convoy, an armored vehicle resembling a mobile fortress, creaked open with the heavy groan of hydraulic machinery. A sickening stench mixing blood, formalin, and machine oil billowed out. Next, 3 colossal monsters, as large as rhinos, crudely fused from flesh and machinery, stepped slowly forward with ponderous strides. Their upper torsos retained the silhouette of feral beasts, thick metal pipelines writhing beneath their raw skin. Their limbs had been refashioned into massive mechanical battering rams. Every heavy step sent tremors rippling through the frozen ground. 3 emotionless red optical sensors glowed side by side where their eyes should have been. They were Shield Biotech's twisted creations, codenamed Chimera. Roar. The three chimeras let loose an eardrum-splitting howl unlike any known creature. Ignoring the scattered, negligible gunfire from the Oasis survivors, they swiped their giant mechanical forelimbs, tearing apart the camp's newly erected outer fortifications with effortless ease. Barriers cobbled together from wrecked cars, and shipping containers crumpled before them like a child's stack of blocks. Open fire. Fire at will. Wang Hu's eyes blazed with rage as he led his combat squad, emptying every automatic rifle they held in a furious hail. Yet the dense storm of rounds only sparked useless flickers against the chimera's fused flesh and steel frames, incapable of piercing their thick outer carapace. It's no use, master. Wang Hu ducked behind cover and roared into his comms. Conventional weapons can't hurt them. Their defensive plating is impenetrable. Do not target their torsos. Lu Yi's icy, unshaken voice crackled in every squad member's headset at that moment. Dr. Chun and Professor Zhang are analyzing their structural weak points. Follow my orders, execute tactical evasion, and buy us time. On the fortress's top floor, Lu Yi gripped a Type 88 sniper rifle, locking the three rampaging monsters firmly in his high-powered scope. Meanwhile, inside the fortress laboratory, Chun Jing and Professor Zhang Qian frantically combed through fragmented data on the Chimera project. Recovered from the Shield Biotech Institute, the data displayed across a massive monitor. I found it. Chun Jing's eyes lit up sharply as she pointed to a complex structural diagram on screen, speaking urgently. Their weak point lies at the joint where mechanical limbs connect to organic torsos. An exposed bundle of biological nerve cords runs there. It is their sole, critical vulnerability. Copy that. Lu Yi's tone was terrifyingly calm. Through his scope, he pinpointed the exposed, writhing pink nerve bundle, no bigger than a fist, at the left hind leg joint. He held his breath. For an instant, the entire world seemed to grind to a standstill. Bang! A crisp gunshot split the snowy night. The sniper bullet, spinning at invisible high velocity, sliced through the blizzard and struck the fragile nerve cord without error. Roar! The overconfident chimera let out a blood-curdling shriek of agony. Its left hind limb seized up instantly, showering sparks from its mechanical joints. Its titanic body crashed heavily to the ice. Though not immediately killed, it was rendered immobile for the time being. Perfect shot. Wang Hu's spirits soared at the sight. Men, follow the master's lead. We can win this. But the remaining two chimeras flew into an even bloodier frenzy upon watching their comrade fall. Abandoning their assault on ordinary survivors, their 6 scarlet optical sensors locked as one. They locked onto the fire position atop the fortress roof, the source of their grievous injury. They bellowed and charged toward Lu Yi's stronghold with thunderous steps. Danger! At the same time, one chimera broke through Wang Hu's squad's firing line and lunged. It headed toward the building at the camp's rear housing their temporary command post and laboratory. Chun Jing and Professor Zhang Qian were still inside. Stop it! Wang Hu's eyes bulged with desperation as he led his men to intercept, but they were too late. The chimera raised its massive mechanical forelimb high, poised to crush the flimsy building into rubble. At this life-or-death juncture, a frail, pale figure materialized out of nowhere in the building's doorway. It was Ling. His tiny frame faced the mountainous beast without fear. He slowly lifted his head, and his star-bright eyes erupted with blinding blue radiance, blazing like twin miniature suns as never before. He parted his small lips and unleashed a silent shriek, inaudible to human ears, yet powerful enough to tear souls asunder. The chimera, its limb raised to strike, froze rigid mid-motion in an instant. Every mechanical component across its body sparked violently. The organic tissue fused to its machinery convulsed and dissolved in plumes of acrid smoke, as though eaten away by powerful acid. Finally, amid a shrill cacophony of snapping metal, the terrifying bioweapon collapsed, a smoldering mangled heap of flesh and scrap metal stripped of all structural integrity. Yet unleashing this world-shattering surge of psychic power took its toll on Ling's body. He swayed unsteadily. 2 thin streams of bright red blood trickled slowly from his tiny nostrils. His face turned ashen white in an instant, the blue solar glow in his eyes fading rapidly. His small frame went limp, and he sank into a deep coma. Inside the Ouroboros squad's temporary encampment, the captain stared at the miraculous scene streaming back from the drone feed. For the very first time, undisguised shock and fanaticism broke through her perpetually icy, unchanging facade. S001. It has actually grown this powerful. She glanced at the chimera unit annihilated in an instant on screen, then toward the distant fortress where precise sniper fire still rang out. In the end, she regained her composure and issued her orders coldly. Mission failed. Terminate Plan B. All personnel, retreat. Upon her command, the remaining crippled chimera wounded by Lu Yuyi, along with all S.H.I.E.L.D. operatives, melted away into the night like a receding tide. The battle was won, yet the cost had been devastating. The Oasis camp's defensive fortifications lay heavily damaged, and multiple members of the combat squad had sustained injuries and casualties. Their most powerful ally, Ling, had fallen into a critical deep coma, his life hanging by a thread. Chen Jing rushed out without delay and lifted the unconscious boy. For the first time, her voice cracked with unrestrained panic and tears. "Master, hurry. His vital signs are dropping rapidly." An oppressive, suffocating silence crashed over the entire fortress in an instant. Inside the medical bay, top-tier vital sign monitors were quickly wired to Ling's tiny, frail frame. Yet the curves tracking his heart rate and mental energy fluctuations on the screen flickered like guttering candles in the wind, growing fainter by the second, teetering on the brink of flattening into a straight line at any moment. "It's no use, nothing's working." Chen Jing's fingers flew across the control panel, her face draining of all color. "Our adrenaline shots, high-energy nutrient solutions, his bodily structure can't process any of it. Every infusion vanishes without a trace, like stones sinking to the bottom of the sea." Physical stimulation failed too. Professor Zhang Qian stood beside her, at a complete loss. He had just attempted jolting Ling's heart with mild electric currents, to zero response. His life form transcends every biological framework we understand. From a scientific standpoint, I cannot even tell if he is alive or dead right now. Wang, who stood guard at the medical bay entrance, rifle clutched tight, his gaze sharp and watchful on the blizzard raging outside. He knew S.H.I.E.L.D.'s retrieval squad had only retreated temporarily and could strike back at any moment, and their settlement was at its most vulnerable right now. Lu Yi stood by the sickbed, staring down at Ling. The boy lay deep in a coma, his mental energy completely exhausted, his small face as pale as paper. Lu Yi's heart sank heavier and heavier within his chest. Ling was his most powerful ally, his greatest trump card to stand against S.H.I.E.L.D. and uncover the truth behind the apocalypse. He could not lose him, but what could he possibly do? Just then, a vivid image flashed through Lu Yi's mind like a bolt of lightning. In the fortress study, when Ling had woken for the first time. Curious, he'd stretched out his tiny palm and touched the faint blue energy crystal extracted from the silver-furred alpha wolf's brain. So hungry, something tasty, energy. The pure, hungry stream of consciousness Ling had sent him back, then blazed crystal clear in his thoughts now. Food. Energy. Lu Yi's eyes lit up abruptly, as if he'd clutched the last lifeline in sight. He made an audacious, almost reckless decision on the spot. "Professor, Dr. Chun." His voice was quiet yet unshakable, brimming with unnegotiable resolve. "Dissect the chimera carcass at once. I need to find its energy source now." Dissect the chimera? Professor Zhang Qian and Chen Jing froze. They were fighting to save Ling's life. Why waste time on a monster's corpse? Carry out the order. Lu Yi's tone turned cold and urgent. "I suspect Ling slipped into this coma from total energy depletion. The cores inside these mutated creatures might be his food." The theory sounded absurd, yet it was their only glimmer of hope amid this desperate crisis. "Understood." Chen Jing and Professor Zhang Qian hesitated no longer, sprinting toward the makeshift laboratory next door. Wang, who quickly rallied several survivors. Using lifting rigs, they hauled a mostly intact chimera corpse into the vast lab space. Beneath searing surgical lamps, a race against time dissection began. Outer plating alloy, unidentifiable. Its hardness outmatches every cutting tool we have. Switch to energy cutters, crank the power to maximum. Sizzle. A shrill cutting whine and acrid burning fumes filled every corner of the laboratory. Lu Yi stood before the medical bay's monitor bank, watching Ling's fading vital curves while listening to Professor Zhang Qian's tense, exhilarated reports crackle over the comms. "We breached it. We've cut open its thoracic cavity. Good heavens, what on earth is this?" Its internal anatomy is half living tissue, half precision machinery. Blood vessels twist and weave alongside energy conduits. It's nothing short of a devil's creation. The energy core. We found it, where the organic heart merges with the mechanical engine. Look at that. Lu Yi immediately pulled up the lab's live feed. Centered inside the chimera's split-open chest rested a fist-sized crystal, pulsing faintly and glowing with an ominous violet luminescence. Half of it bore the fleshy, visceral texture of a living heart. The other half crackled with arcing electricity and mechanical components. Two utterly distinct substances fused together in a perfect, uncanny harmony. Sir, Professor Zhang Qian's voice trembled with wild excitement. This is a flawless fusion of biological battery and miniature nuclear fission reactor. Unimaginable technology. Shield science is at least 50 years ahead of our era. Extract it. Lu Yi issued his final command. As fast as you can. Back in the medical bay, beep, beep, beep. The electrocardiogram's trace had nearly flattened into a straight line. Sir, it's slipping away. Ling's mental energy fluctuations are vanishing. Chen Jing's voice cracked with despairing sobs. The lab door slammed open at that very moment. Professor Zhang Qian stumbled in clutching a specialized cooling case. We've got it. Lu Yi snatched the case and flipped it open. Inside lay the violet, half-organic, half-mechanical fusion energy core, radiating an eerie, overwhelming power. Everyone stepped back. Lu Yi prepared a reckless gamble that stunned every onlooker. Pulling on insulating gloves, he carefully lifted the faintly throbbing violet core and held it gently above Ling's bloodless small face, close to his chest. At the last split second before Ling's vital signs vanished entirely, he let go. Time seemed to grind to a halt. In an instant, the violet core slammed against Ling's chest like iron filings drawn to a magnet. It blazed far brighter than it ever had before, as though it had finally found its long-lost home. Within the radiant glow, the seemingly indestructible core dissolved at a visible rate, breaking into streams of pure violet energy that flowed like rivulets emptying into an ocean, pouring endlessly into Ling's slight frame. Beep, 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 beep. The flatlining vital sign monitor erupted in rapid, sharp, powerful alert tones. The fading life curve on screen surged upward, climbing higher and higher, finally stabilizing at an explosive power level far above standard readings. Color flooded Ling's deathly pale cheeks before everyone's eyes. He remained unconscious, yet his breathing steadied, deep and strong. Driven by the surging foreign energy flooding his body, he appeared to be undergoing an unprecedented, profound metamorphosis. All present stared in stunned silence at the miraculous scene before them, too afraid to draw a breath. Watching this unfold, Lu Yi's rigid frame slowly relaxed. He knew his gamble had paid off. Not only had he found a way to sustain Ling's life, but he had also secured the settlement's only path to grow stronger. In this deadly new world for himself and everyone under his protection, this thawing landscape teeming with unknown mutated beasts would become his vast hunting ground to hunt down sustenance for Ling. Lu Yi watched the vital curve settle back into a steady rhythm, his taut muscles gradually unwinding. He knew he had bet correctly. He had not only found a way to keep Ling alive, but also forged the sole path for himself and the entire settlement to grow stronger in this perilous new world. This thawing realm, overrun with uncharted mutated creatures, would become his boundless hunting ground to seek out sustenance for Ling. The battle was won, yet the cost was devastating. This marked the first loss of life since the Oasis settlement was founded. 3 survivors had fallen fighting the Chimera, with 7 sustaining critical wounds. A heavy, mournful gloom hung thick over the entire encampment. The next morning, following Lu Yi's orders, Chen Jing held a simple yet solemn funeral for the 3 fallen warriors. No eulogies, no weeping. Every survivor present bowed deeply before 3 newly erected plain stone markers. Death was commonplace in the apocalypse, but to die defending one's home was an honor. Once the service ended, Chen Jing climbed a hastily built platform. Facing all survivors, she delivered Lu Yi's decrees in a clear, resolute voice. Orders from the Lord. Every person fell silent in an instant, all eyes fixed on her. All warriors killed in this defense shall be posthumously granted the title first-class citizen of Oasis. Their families shall receive top-tier rations in perpetuity and an unconditional allocation of 30,000 contribution points. Every warrior wounded during the conflict will be awarded 10,000 contribution points and granted access to the highest standard of medical care. All survivors who join the fight shall each receive 3,000 contribution points. The announcement detonated through the crowd like a high explosive shell. 30,000 contribution points. Did I hear that right? Does that mean the fallen soldiers' families won't ever need to work again? The Lord, He truly is merciful beyond measure. The generous compensation calmed the survivors' grief-stricken anxiety and implanted a powerful sense of belonging and pride within every heart. For the first time, they truly understood they were guarding more than just a place to survive. They were protecting a home worth dying for. Meanwhile, In the fortress laboratory, Professor Zhang Qian and his technical team reveled in their spoils of war. Sir, come quickly and see this. Professor Zhang Qian's excited voice crackled over the comms, sounding 20 years younger. This is a treasure beyond anything the old world could ever imagine. Lu Yi pulled up the lab surveillance feed as the team circled the dissected chimera corpse. Their faces alight with near fanatical fervor, Professor Zhang Qian pointed to a sliced-off metal glinting armor plating. Elated, "Look here, sir. Our preliminary analysis of this biological alloy shows its tensile strength, toughness, and energy resistance far surpass every alloy we previously manufactured. If we reverse engineer its molecular structure, we can mass-produce this plating ourselves. Your combat vehicles and fortress defenses will grow more than 10 times stronger." He gestured toward a captured shield off-road vehicle parked to one side. And this, the compact energy shield generator mounted aboard, along with their energy firearms. Most were self-destructed during their retreat, but even the scraps left behind give me full confidence we can reverse engineer their entire technology base. Sir, Professor Zhang Qian concluded at last, his voice trembling slightly with excitement. The gains we've made this time will push Oasis forward by a qualitative leap in technological capabilities. Very well. Lu Yi listened, thoroughly satisfied. Draw up a list of any resources you require, and I will give you my full backing. The elation of victory and the prospect of a technological breakthrough seemed to wash away all the gloom that had hung over them before. Yet Lu Yi knew that shadows always lingered beneath the light. Some things were far more terrifying than Shield's bioweapons, such as human hearts. That night, in a secluded corner of the encampment, several survivors who'd only handled logistical support gathered. During the day's battle and never faced the Chimera's terror huddled together, whispering among themselves. Hey, did you see what happened to the guys who died today? Their intestines were spilling everywhere. Horrific sight. A scrawny, sharp-featured man hissed in a low voice. Tell me about it. Another man echoed, still trembling from fright. Word has it that monster tore shipping containers apart with one swipe of its claw. How are regular people supposed to fight something like that? We got lucky this time, but what about next time? I heard. Mark my words, this is what I've heard. The gaunt man leaned in, speaking conspiratorially. Shield's crew came straight for that little divine child of ours. If we hadn't taken the boy in. He trailed off, yet his meaning was crystal clear. Shush. Keep your voice down. Are you trying to get us killed? Someone beside him cut in sharply, panic-stricken. If Captain Wang who overhears you bad-mouthing the sir and that child, you'll pay dearly for it. I was just saying. The scrawny man shrank his neck, yet a flicker of resentment and malice flashed across his eyes. But what he said is true. As long as that boy stays here, Shield will come back sooner or later. Next time, it might not be just 3 chimeras. We'll all be dragged down with him to our deaths. A silent undercurrent, one that advocated handing Ling over to secure peace, began to fester quietly in the hearts of a small handful of survivors. Inside the fortress study, Wang Hu recounted every word of these secret murmurs to Lu Yi without omission. Sir, killing intent flickered across Wang Hu's face. Shall I go deal with them? No need. Lu Yi cut him off, his tone calm, devoid of the slightest emotion. He walked to the window and gazed down at the encampment below, where order had been restored and faint signs of new vitality were emerging. He spoke softly. Water can carry a boat, yet it can also capsize it. The hearts of men are no different. It is only natural they feel afraid. They have never witnessed true power, nor endured utter despair. Fear is a contagious virus, but it also serves as the finest touchstone to reveal a person's true colors. Lu Yi turned to face Wang Hu, his gaze cold as ice. Keep a close watch on all those who spread idle gossip. I want to know exactly who is actively spreading this virus. Lu Yi's frigid words echoed slowly through the study. Wang Hu met his emotionless eyes, a chill running down his spine. He nodded solemnly. Understood, sir. Over the following month, Lu Yi did not venture outside the fortress. The Oasis settlement entered a period of deceptively calm, yet fast-paced development, with undercurrents swirling beneath the surface. On one front, Wang Hu and his combat squads operated like an invisible net, creeping into every nook and cranny of the camp to mark each scheming troublemaker stoking panic. On the other, deep within the fortress laboratory, facilities rivaling the top research institutes of the old world, Professor Zhang Qian and his technical team threw themselves into sleepless, fanatical research on the spoils seized from S.H.I.E.L.D. One afternoon, Lu Yi received an urgent comms request from Professor Zhang Qian, who was so overjoyed he could barely string coherent sentences together. Sir, come quickly to the shooting range. We've done it. When Lu Yi arrived at the underground indoor firing range, Professor Zhang Qian and several technicians surrounded a half-meter square metal plate shimmering with dark gold luster, their faces alight with near-maniacal delight. Look, sir, Professor Zhang Qian pointed at the plate, his voice shaking with excitement. After thousands of simulations and trials, we've succeeded. We reverse-engineered and replicated the Chimera's biological armor alloy. A flicker of surprise crossed Lu Yi's eyes. How effective is its defensive power? He asked in a deep, steady voice. Words mean nothing. See for yourself. Professor Zhang Qian rubbed his hands together eagerly. Please test it personally, sir. He signaled a technician to secure the armor plate at the far end of the shooting range. Without a word, Lu Yi retrieved his trusted Type 88 sniper rifle from his personal storage, loaded the round, and chambered it in one fluid motion. He stepped back 50 meters, raised the rifle, and took aim. Every person in the range held their breath. Bang! A sharp gunshot rang out. The sniper bullet, capable of piercing ordinary steel plate from 500 meters away, spun at invisible high velocity and slammed hard into the dark gold armor slab. Clang! A crisp, buzzing metallic ring echoed out. All eyes locked rigidly on the target. The plate only shuddered faintly, bearing a shallow white indentation less than half a centimeter deep. The bullet had ricocheted clean off. Good heavens! It blocked it. Not even a sniper round can punch through. The technicians present erupted into cries of stunned disbelief. Lu Yi slowly lowered his rifle and stepped forward to run a finger over the still warm impact mark on the plate. At last, a faint, satisfied smile tugged at his lips. Excellent, he said to the elated professor. Truly excellent. With this material, our odds of survival will rise drastically. This is only the beginning. Professor Zhang Qian's cheeks flushed with the thrill of their massive breakthrough. He tugged Lu Yi toward the other side of the lab. Sir, we've also made astounding progress on energy weapons. He gestured toward a complex machine tangled with countless cables, the heavily damaged energy shield generator, dismantled from the captured shield off-road vehicle. Though its core module self-destructed, cross-referencing the Prometheus database with our analysis of the wreckage has let us grasp its fundamental operating principles. Professor Zhang Qian spoke at a rapid clip, like a child eager to show off a finished project to his teacher. At its core, it uses controlled plasma confinement technology. Provided there is sufficient power, it can theoretically withstand physical impacts several orders of magnitude greater than its own energy output. The researchers at SHIELD are nothing short of geniuses. However, his tone shifted, a look of distress crossing his face. We face a massive hurdle if we hope to replicate, even upgrade this technology. What obstacle? Lu Yi asked. Materials. Professor Zhang Qian pointed to a complex molecular diagram displayed on the screen and explained. To stabilize high-energy plasma confinement, we require a rare special metal as the core medium. For energy conduction and force field stabilization, this metal was extremely scarce even in the old world, most reserves monopolized by conglomerates like SHIELD. We have none in our stockpiles. According to leftover shipping logs in the database, Professor Zhang Qian marked a location on the city map. There is only one site close by that might hold stockpiles of this metal, the 3rd Industrial Zone in the Eastern District. It once served as a raw material transit warehouse operated by SHIELD Corporation. A new expedition target had emerged. Just as Lu Yi committed the name 3rd Industrial Zone to memory, another comms request came through from Qinjing. Sir, Ling's condition has undergone unexpected new changes. Lu Yi immediately pulled up the live feed. Inside the medical bay, Ling still lay quietly unconscious in bed, but an eerie phenomenon unfolded all around him. A glass water cup on the nightstand hovered slowly in mid-air, suspended with no external force acting upon it. What is this? This started early this morning. Chun Jing's voice carried a mix of wonder and worry. Ling's mental energy fluctuations are spiking abnormally at an alarming rate. It's as though he is unconsciously warping the physical environment. What's more, his body is undergoing some form of evolution we cannot comprehend. Lu Yi stared at the floating cup on screen, then at the slight figure on the bed, sinking into deep thought. Every evolution Ling underwent meant a far more powerful trump card at their disposal. Yet this immense power was a double-edged sword, shrouded in countless unknowns. Step up constant monitoring, he ordered coolly. Report any irregularities to me the instant they appear. He closed the comms channel and stood alone in the shooting range, gazing at the armor plate marked only by a shallow dent. His gaze growing unfathomably profound. Technology surged forward, new power awakened, but the virus of fear lurking within the encampment continued to spread unseen. He knew that before launching the expedition to the third industrial zone, he first had to perform a debridement of his oasis, cutting out the rot from within. Lu Yi chose not to send Wang Hu to strike immediately. The fear virus had already spread wide. Simply executing a handful of ringleaders would only treat the symptom, not the root cause, and risk stoking rebellious resentment among the survivors. He needed an opportunity, one that would let every single person see the divide between cowards and warriors, and willingly sever all ties with those spreading the poison. This chance arrived far sooner, and far more lethally, than he anticipated. While he began drafting plans for the expedition to the third industrial zone, a far deadlier threat crept forth from the natural world. Early that morning, the high-altitude drone reconnaissance unit transmitted an urgent top-priority alert. "Sir, Dr. Chun," a young scout's panicked voice crackled over the comms. "Look at the upstream reservoir. Something catastrophic is about to happen there." Lu Yi instantly switched the main screen to the drone's live high-altitude feed. Dozens of kilometers upstream from the city loomed a giant reservoir dam, straddling the mountain valley, holding back hundreds of millions of tons of melted glacial water. The structure hung precariously on the brink of collapse. Sustained rising temperatures had caused the glaciers behind the dam to melt at an unprecedented pace. The crushing water pressure strained the dam, once hailed as an engineering marvel, like a balloon inflated to its limit. The drone's high-definition camera captured countless hairline cracks snaking across its thick concrete facade. This can't be possible. Inside the laboratory, Professor Zhang Qian stared at the monitor, utterly aghast. This dam was engineered to withstand a once-in-a-millennium flood. How could it possibly? "Professor, times have changed." Chen Jing's face was etched with grave alarm. Years of perpetual freezing have warped and rotted its internal structures. If it collapses, every inch of land where we stand will be completely submerged under floodwater and ice within hours. Every single one of us will die. Yet this was not the worst of their troubles. "Zoom in on the center of the reservoir," Lu Yi suddenly ordered, his tone heavier than before. As the drone's camera zoomed closer, a blurry mountain-sized dark mass emerged moving beneath the reservoir surface. What in the world is that?" Wang Hu's voice cracked with shock. Just then, the colossal shadow appeared, spooked by the drone's engine hum, and surged violently upward from the depths. Boom! A towering wall of water exploded skyward. Before everyone's eyes loomed a gargantuan mutated beast, a nightmarish fusion of an ancient crab and prehistoric giant tortoise, encased in a thick, icy blue carapace. Every breath it took churned massive waves. Its frame dwarfed even a small aircraft carrier. The thawing reservoir had roused this primeval leviathan slumbering on the lake bed. Its murky lantern-sized compound eyes, drawn to the energy signal from the oasis camp, locked onto the downstream settlement. It began lumbering along the river channel, heading straight for them. An apocalyptic natural disaster capable of wiping out everything was closing in on their gates. Half an hour later, an emergency assembly was called at the oasis camp. All survivors were summoned to the central plaza. Standing atop a raised platform, Chun Jing delivered the two devastating news. The reservoir dam was on the verge of collapse, and a monstrous aquatic leviathan was bearing down on them. Panic spread through the crowd like a plague in an instant. What? The dam's going to break? A monster as big as an aircraft carrier? We're doomed. We need to run right now. Chaos erupted among the survivors, despair pushing the entire camp to the brink of collapse. At that moment, Lu Yi's cold, authoritative voice filtered through a voice modifier blared across the camp. Silence. Only 2 words, yet they carried an invisible, unopposable weight of command that snuffed out all clamor. Crisis also brings opportunity. Lu Yi's tone remained level. This dam is both a blade hanging over our heads and our last line of defense. If it crumbles, none of us will survive. I now require a suicide squad, led by Captain Wang Hu, to depart for the dam at once. They will use our new materials to conduct emergency repairs on the fissures and buy us precious time. This fight is for all of us, for our home. I need warriors, not cowards. All those willing to stand and fight for the oasis, step behind Captain Wang Hu. The moment he finished speaking, Wang Hu stepped forward without hesitation. Several members of the combat squads followed. The majority of the survivors, however, hesitated, fear etched across their faces. A discordant voice suddenly cut through the crowd. It belonged to the gaunt, sharp-featured man codenamed Four Eyes. "This is nothing but a suicide mission," he shouted. putting on a brave front despite his terror. We clawed our way through hell just to stay alive, not to be cannon fodder for you. The dam's about to collapse and a monster is coming. We should pack our things and flee instead of throwing our lives away. His words voiced the unspoken thoughts of countless others. He's right. Let's run. I don't want to die. Wang Hu spun around, his eyes blazing, as he fixed his glare on Four Eyes. Zhao Si, he roared. Say that again if you dare. Without the master, you wouldn't have a warm bowl of porridge to eat. Now our home needs your help, and you're too much of a coward to step up? I just don't want to die for nothing. Zhao Si stuck out his jaw and argued defiantly. If we flee up into the mountains, we'll stand a better chance than waiting here to be killed. Flee. Lu Yuyi's voice dripped with derision as it echoed over the speakers. Where exactly do you plan to run? No food, no weapons, no warm shelter. Do you believe you can last 3 days on the frozen tundra? Or perhaps, his tone turned icy cold. You imagine the oasis is a place you can come and go as you please. Zhao Si trembled all over, falling silent. Lu Yuyi gave him no further chance to speak. Very well. You have made your choices. Wang Hu, every warrior who marches on this expedition will earn double contribution points. As for the rest of you, Lu Yuyi's voice swept over the crowd like a frigid blizzard, sending a chill through everyone. The oasis does not feed cowards. Starting today, anyone unwilling to fight to protect this home will no longer be recognized as a member of the oasis. Qinjing, distribute 3 days' rations and a dagger to each of them. Then show them the gate. Let them fend for themselves. Lu Yuyi's icy verdict reverberated through the camp. A deathly silence fell across the plaza. The survivors who had cowered out of fear stood ashen-faced, staring at Qinjing, clinging to the hope that this was a cruel joke. But Qinjing's expression remained impassive. She waved a hand, and several combat troops stepped forward to hand each exile oil-wrapped rations and a dagger. Leave. Qinjing's voice held the same coldness. This is the master's final mercy. The second you made your choice, you forfeited your place among the people of the oasis. No, don't cast us out. We were wrong. Give us one more chance. We'll die out there. Please spare us. Pleading and wailing erupted. Yet neither Qinjing nor the staying survivors showed the slightest wavering. In the apocalypse, to abandon one's home was tantamount to choosing death. Zhao Si, who had incited the unrest, watched the scene unfold, all color draining from his face. He pointed toward the fortress and screeched hollowly, "You'll regret this. Every last one of you will perish here. That monster will grind you all to pulp. I'll be waiting for you all in hell." Wang Hu wasted no more words on him, shooting a signal to his soldiers. Cold rifle barrels were raised, aimed at the exiles. "Open the gate." Wang Hu's voice cut like Arctic wind. "Send them away." Faced with the threat of execution, Zhao Si and the other exiles snatched their supplies and trundled through the gate. Reporting to the master, standing atop a modified truck, Wang Hu spoke grimly into his communicator. "The spearhead squad is fully assembled. We depart for the dam immediately and guarantee mission completion. Stay safe." Lu Yuyi's voice crackled over the channel. But the second Wang Hu prepared to move out. Boom. Rumble. Rumble. A deep, violent tremor rolled in from upstream. The entire ground shook violently. Many people in the camp lost their balance. What's happening? An earthquake? It's not an earthquake. Inside the monitoring room, Professor Zhang Qian pointed at the screen, his voice shrill. It's the beast. It's here." Every person craned their necks to gaze upstream. On the far horizon, a mountainous dark mass lumbered toward them. Its carrier-sized frame sent seismic ripples through the ground. Its compound eyes fixed on the oasis camp. A tangible, primeval aura of dread washed over every survivor, making it hard to breathe. It's coming. The monster is here." The fragile courage and order the survivors had built crumbled before this leviathan. All non-combat personnel, evacuate to the underground bunkers at once. After the shock, Qinjing snapped into action. Combat squads, man all designated emplacements and prepare for battle. A desperate siege officially began. Lu Yuyi sat before the control panel, his features heavy with foreboding. Wang Hu, abandon the damn mission. All units return to camp immediately and activate maximum defense protocols. Understood. Wang Hu rushed the spearhead squad back to man every firing position. Open fire. At Lu Yuyi's command, every heavy weapon the camp possessed unleashed a barrage against the Leviathan. Boom, boom, boom. Spectacular bursts of flame bloomed across the beast's carapace. Yet all their attacks were futile. Not a single strike left a scratch on its shell. The Leviathan appeared enraged by these irritating gnats buzzing around it. It raised one skyscraper-sized claw and brought it crashing down with annihilating force onto the camp's outer fortifications. Crashed the barrier built from shipping containers and wrecked vehicles, engineered to withstand any conventional impact, crumpled like paper beneath the blow, reduced to flying scrap metal. Were finished, staring at the unstoppable colossus bearing down on them. Profound despair clouded every survivor's eyes. At that critical moment, Master, the experimental electromagnetic shield, is fully charged. Professor Zhang Qian's voice crackled over the comms, edged with frantic urgency. Activate it. Lu Yi roared without hesitation. Hum. A faint blue hemispherical energy barrier materialized instantly in front of the camp's main structure, a fragile-looking azure bubble blocking the Leviathan's path. The beast paid no heed to the tiny bubble. Its mountainous claw descended once more, carrying enough power to level everything in its path. Boom. This time, the ground shook violently enough to split stone. Miraculously, the seemingly delicate blue barrier withstood the cataclysmic blow intact. Yet Professor Zhang Qian's despairing report followed close on its heels. Master, the shield can't hold. Energy spiked into instant overload. We've got, at most 10 more seconds. On the monitor, the green bar indicating energy reserves plummeted at a terrifying rate. Spiderweb cracks spread all across the shield's surface. 10 seconds. A death countdown ticking down. Inside the fortress, on the top-floor medical chamber, violent tremors shook the entire room as if struck by an earthquake. Meanwhile, the massive collective psychic surge rippling out from every survivor in the camp, thick with terror, despair, and bitter unwillingness, crashed like the strongest stimulant into the consciousness of the small figure who had lain comatose for over a month. Ling's closed eyelids fluttered sharply atop the hospital bed. Every reading on the vital signs monitor hooked up to his body maxed out off the charts in an instant. He opened his eyes. Gone were all the confusion and timidity from before. In their place lay a profound calm as vast as the cosmos, glinting with tangible blue luminescence. 3, 2, 1, crack. As Professor Zhang Qian's desperate countdown ended, the energy barrier shattered like smashed glass. The beast's mountain-sized claw swept unobstructed down toward the camp's central core building, poised to crush it flat. Everyone squeezed their eyes shut, bracing for annihilation. Yet the promised devastation never came. Time seemed to grind to a standstill. Trembling, the survivors slowly opened their eyes. What they witnessed was a miracle they would carry with them for the rest of their lives. A small figure clad in a white lab coat hovered silently mid-air, appearing out of nowhere without a sound. He hung suspended there, his slight frame standing directly in the path of the all-crushing giant claw. It was Ling. He made no sound, no extraneous movement. He simply lifted his thin, pale hand slowly, aiming it straight at the rampaging primeval Leviathan. An invisible, cataclysmic psychic force, so immense it warped the surrounding air, erupted forth in an instant. The colossal beast's body locked rigid. Its icy blue carapace, impervious even to rocket rounds, split open with hideous spiderweb fissures out of nowhere. For the first time, raw fear flickered within its murky compound eyes. It let loose a silent wail, inaudible to human ears yet powerful enough to rend souls asunder. Then, before the crowd's stunned gaze, its mountainous frame crumpled as if crushed from within by an invisible giant mountain, disintegrating entirely. It dissolved into a storm of glistening blue ice crystals swirling through the air. The battle was over. Ling drifted gently back down to the ground. Though his complexion remained pale, his eyes shone crystal clear and resolute. He turned his head toward the fortress, toward his soul family. A clear stream of thought, no longer childish or timid, flowed directly into Lu Yi's mind. I heard them calling. Others like me, they need me. The apocalyptic primeval Leviathan crumbled into a flurry of shimmering blue ice crystals before every onlooker's stunned eyes. The battle ended in a way no one could have ever imagined. After half a minute of suffocating, dead silence, the entire Oasis camp erupted into an unprecedented, earth-shattering roar of wild celebration. We won. We actually won. It's that boy. A miracle. A miracle sent by the Master. Long live the Master. Long live the Oasis. All survivors fixed their most fervent, reverent gazes upon the slight figure drifting down from the sky, the single soul who had single-handedly turned back a natural disaster, and the unbreakable steel fortress rising behind him. Like a divine sanctuary, Lu Yi's prestige reached an unparalleled peak in that moment. He was no longer merely a powerful protector offering shelter to these survivors. He had become an omnipotent, true god. The cheers faded, giving way to tense, orderly post-battle reconstruction. All combat units, tally ammunition and casualties at once. Chun Jing stood on high ground, directing the shaken survivors in a clear, steady voice. Medical teams, treat the wounded immediately. Logistics teams, assess damage to the fortifications. Reconstruction must begin first thing tomorrow morning. Elsewhere in the camp, Professor Zhang Qian and his technical team rushed toward the only remnant left after the beast's collapse, as if they had stumbled upon an undiscovered continent, consumed with feverish excitement. It was an irregular, colossal energy core as large as a truck's cab, radiating a deep, faint blue glow. It hovered half a meter above the ground, the air around it warping faintly from the staggering power contained within. Good heavens, good heavens. Professor Zhang Qian circled the massive core, trembling all over with excitement, his eyes blazing with rapture and obsession. Magnificent, this is nothing short of a cosmic miracle. The energy it holds exceeds the combined total of every chimera core we've seized before. 100 times over, no, 1,000 times. Master, he reported to Lu Yi over the comms, his voice shaking uncontrollably. With this as our main power source, that grand blueprint you laid out earlier, it might truly become reality. Inside the fortress, Lu Yi listened quietly to the report. His gaze never strayed from the small figure who had just woke, sitting peacefully on the sofa. Ling, how do you feel? For the first time, Lu Yi reached out to Ling for an equal, psychic exchange after his awakening. Ling lifted his head, his star-pure eyes resting softly on Lu Yi. A clear mental message, far more mature and unflinching than his earlier timid thoughts, slipped straight into Lu Yi's mind. I am well. His mind had undergone earth-shattering growth after absorbing the chimera core and this desperate awakening. He was no longer the ignorant child who could only express basic emotions. Thank you, Lu Yi. It was the first time Ling had spoken his name. You mentioned you sensed calls from others like you? Lu Yi cut to the critical matter. Ling nodded, a deep sorrow flickering across his young face, far too heavy for his appearance. Yes, he explained. Across this frozen land, there are countless others, beings just like me. We are all products of the hibernation project. Shield forged us, bound by chains of engineered genes. We wield unique, formidable psychic abilities. Yet most of them remain trapped inside Shield's cold, abandoned facilities, just as I once was. Others struggle to survive out on this desolate wasteland, hunted and chased as monsters. A storm of thoughts churned violently within Lu Yi's heart. A single Ling already possessed power enough to reshape the world's balance. If dozens more such beings existed, this awakening of yours, was it triggered by something? Urgency flashed in Ling's eyes. I detected an extremely powerful cry for help from a fellow being far away. His life is threatened by something foul, fanatical. His desperate summons pulled me fully out of my slumber. Ling slowly raised a finger, pointing toward the massive electronic map mounted on the study wall. A faint wisp of blue light flickered at his fingertip. A red dot began blinking steadily on the map. It marked a region Lu Yi had never set foot in, a vast, boundless swamp deep within the continent's interior, completely submerged by floodwaters after glacial melt and tectonic shifts. Lu Yi stared at the new blinking marker on the map, then glanced out the window at the oasis camp. Scarred from battle, yet thriving, its foundations firmly laid. He knew he could no longer merely cling to this small haven. That night, he summoned his three most trusted core confidants, Wang Hu, Chen Jing, and Professor Zhang Qian, to the highest floor of the fortress. For the first time, he laid bare the full truth of Ling, and the existence of all his kin trapped scattered across the world. Even Wang Hu, a battle-hardened warrior hardened by countless brushes with death, was deeply moved after hearing everything. So, Chen Jing's voice trembled slightly. Everything we've endured, it was all just a side effect of one deranged experiment. You could say that, Lu Yi nodded. He looked at the three companions who had stood with him through life and death, and delivered a staggering resolution in an unprecedented solemn tone. Starting today, our goal is no longer merely to survive. I have decided we will take the offensive. We will seek out and liberate every one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s imprisoned kin. We will rally all the abandoned power of this world to stand against our shared enemy. And in the end, we will uncover every secret of this apocalypse hidden behind Avalon. A brand new, far grander and deadlier journey was set in motion at this moment. After the initial shock faded, flames of unyielding resolve ignited in the eyes of Wang Hu, Chen Jing, and Zhang Qian. They understood that from this moment onward, The man they followed was no longer merely a strong survivor clinging to self-preservation, but a sovereign poised to usher in a new era. Master, Wang Hu dropped to one knee first, his voice firm and resonant. You gave me my life. I will follow you through mountains of blades and seas of fire, ready to die 100 times over. We swear to stand beside you until the very end of the apocalypse. Chen Jing and Professor Zhang Qian also pledged their loyalty solemnly. Lu Yuyi nodded, knowing his core team had truly united as one at last. Excellent. He turned to Professor Zhang Qian. Professor, if we are to embark on long expeditions, our current doomsday chariot is no longer sufficient for cross-continental travel and unknown threats. I require a vessel, a land cruiser capable of conquering this frozen continent. You mean to build? Professor Zhang Qian's breath hitched sharply, his mind racing back to their earlier report and the truck-sized Leviathan core. Precisely. A mix of wild ambition and cold rationality glinted in Lu Yuyi's eyes. I task you with constructing an impregnable mobile fortress, drawing fully on that Leviathan core as the primary energy source, integrating all our salvaged shield technology and advanced new materials. I shall name her the Pioneer. The Pioneer, Professor Zhang Qian whispered the name, a supernova bright radiance bursting in his eyes. His face flushed scarlet with overwhelming excitement, his whole body trembling. It can be done. Absolutely. He waved his arms fervently. With near limitless energy supplied by that core, we can even fit experimental energy shielding. Forge the hull from repurposed Chimera armor plating, mount electromagnetic cannons. Heavens, Master! What you intend to build is not just a vehicle, it is a mobile doomsday fortress, a land-based aircraft carrier. The frantic construction project centered around the Pioneer officially kicked off at this moment. For the next half-month, the Oasis camp descended into an unprecedented fever pitch of construction. Professor Zhang Qian and his technical team threw themselves into the design and assembly of the Pioneer day and night, fueled by relentless drive. The indestructible carapace harvested from the Leviathan beast was cut apart and reforged to form the vessel's outer armor. The epoch-defining technology stored within Prometheus's core database supplied them with cutting-edge theoretical support. A menacing wasteland-style colossus integrating living quarters, research labs, combat bays, and maintenance workshops slowly took shape inside the temporary dry dock at the camp center. Yet as the Pioneer project surged full steam ahead, Wang Hu sought out Lu Yuyi once more. A cold, murderous glint hardening his features. Master, he reported in a low, grave tone. The troublemakers you ordered me to monitor have grown increasingly restless lately. Oh, ever since they learned we're planning a long-distance expedition and building the Pioneer. They've spread panic among the survivors nonstop. They claim we're draining all our supplies to march to our deaths, and that Ling the boy is a harbinger of catastrophe. Wang Hu's knuckles cracked as he clenched his fists tight. Worse still, we uncovered a plot led by Zhao Si and several others. They're inciting some logistics staff to steal stockpiled compressed rations and medicine, planning to sneak away right before our expedition departs. Lu Yuyi listened silently, his expression utterly unruffled. I understand, he spoke evenly. He knew the time had come to purge the rot within their ranks. The following morning, the camp blared a top-priority emergency assembly siren. All survivors gathered uneasily in the central plaza. They spotted the gaunt sharp featured Zhao Si alongside 7 or 8 other habitual troublemakers, kneeling in the plaza's center at gunpoint from the combat squad, their faces drained of all color. As the crowd buzzed with confused murmurs, wondering what transgression had been committed, the imposing alloy gate of the fortress slid slowly open. A tall man clad in black thermal combat gear stepped forth, young of face yet cold-eyed. At his side, Ling, the child rumored to have single-handedly halted an apocalyptic monster, floated quietly mid-air. A deathly silence crashed over the plaza in an instant. Every survivor stared at the man in stunned awe. It was him. This was their legendary, godlike master, whom they had only ever heard over loudspeakers before. For the very first time, Lu Yuyi appeared before all survivors without a voice modulator. He felt no rage, nor did he launch a lengthy lecture. He merely walked calmly up to the raised platform and picked up the microphone. Many of you have wondered who I am. His clear, steady voice carried to every ear. But that matters little. What matters is this. I built the Oasis. I gave you warm shelter, abundant food, and the dignity to survive in this hellish world. What I ask for in return are warriors who will stand guard over this home alongside me, and builders who will lay its foundations brick by brick. His gaze swept slowly over Zhao Si and the others kneeling on the ground, turning frigid in an instant. But traitors and cowards have no place in the oasis. Zhao, he called the name sharply. Zhao convulsed and collapsed flat on the ground. I knew every word of panic you spread the moment you spoke it. I watched every attempt you made to incite desertion. You thought your schemes went unseen, yet you forget, within this oasis, nothing escapes my notice. Lu Yi paid no more mind to Zhao, now trembling and cowering in abject terror. Instead, he turned to the crowd of survivors who had lost loved ones during the camp's defense battles. I swore I would deliver justice for every fallen warrior. Now, I place the judgment of these corrupt agitators into your hands. He refused to carry out the sentence himself, entrusting the final verdict to those who had shed blood protecting their home. After a brief, heavy silence, a young widow who had lost her husband in battle stepped forward first, picking up a jagged stone, raw hatred blazing in her eyes. It was you, all of you cowards. If you hadn't undermined our morale from the shadows, my husband, he would still be alive. Her roar ignited the fury burning inside every survivor's heart. Beneath a storm of hate-fueled blows, the agitators were overwhelmed completely. This cold yet necessary purge acted like a surgical excision, cutting out the malignant rot hidden inside the oasis and forging the entire camp into an unbreakable, unified steel collective. As Lu Yi returned to the fortress, thunderous engine roars echoed from outside. The main hull of the Pioneer had been fully completed. Several more days passed spent on internal system calibration and supply stockpiling. At long last, the day of the expedition arrived. Every resident of the oasis crowded into the plaza to bid farewell to their godlike protector and his squad. The land carrier resembling a roaming mountain, the Pioneer, rested silently at the camp's center. Its dark, blue hull forged from the Leviathan's carapace glinted with chilling frost beneath the faint, dim sunlight of the apocalypse. Lu Yi stood upon the vessel's massive bridge, gazing down at the survivors filled with adoration and trust through the observation window. Beside him stood his core team, Wang Hu, Chen Jing, Professor Zhang Qian, and Ling, who stared wide-eyed with curiosity at the steel colossus. Master, Chen Jing spoke beside him. All camp affairs have been fully arranged. While we are gone, the security squad will maintain maximum alert status, and all production cycles will continue as normal. Well done, Lu Yi nodded. He lifted the communicator and spoke one final line to the crowd below in his natural clear, steady voice, no voice filter distorting his tone. Guard our home well. Wait for our return. Yes. Every survivor roared the reply with every ounce of their strength, the sound shaking the air. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The Pioneer's colossal engines, beating like the heart of a beast, rumbled to life. Its massive treads rotated slowly, grinding through the ice beneath them. This mobile doomsday fortress, bearing the hopes of every soul in the oasis, rolled steadily out of the camp, venturing into the vast unknown wasteland on its quest to seek out Ling's kin. As the Pioneer ventured deep into the continent's interior, an alien, bizarre new world unfolded before them, utterly unlike any stretch of wasteland they had encountered before. Good heavens, what is that? From the bridge, Lookout Wang Hu pointed toward an endless stretch of open water, shock thick in his voice. Stretching before them lay a vast inland lake the size of an ocean. Rising global temperatures had melted colossal glaciers, pouring floodwater into low-lying basins to form this sprawling inland sea. Incredible! Professor Zhang Qian brushed a hand against the cold observation pane, awe etched across his face. The entire geological landscape has reshaped itself. We are witnessing the birth of a new world. They also passed through a strange, deadly mutated jungle. Ancient plant seeds trapped under ice for tens of thousands of years had revived and mutated wildly after the thaw. Giant python-like vines coiled around collapsed skyscrapers, and some flora had even evolved predatory traits, dragging any living creature that drew near into shadowed traps. This world is far more dangerous than we imagined, Chen Jing murmured gravely as she stared at the twisted alien vegetation. Yet more unsettling than the mutated wilderness were the scars left behind by humanity itself. That afternoon, they halted beside the charred ruins of a large survivor settlement. This had once been a camp housing hundreds, yet nothing remained but silent blackened earth. It wasn't mutated beasts that did this. Wang Hu circled the wreckage and delivered his grim verdict. Every structure here was incinerated by extreme heat. Look at these steel girders, they've melted clean through. The entire settlement had been purged by an unimaginably intense fire. All buildings were reduced to cinders and carbonized. Unrecognizable corpses littered the ground. A sickly, acrid stench hung thick in the air. Who would do this? What reason could they possibly have? Chen Jing stared at the hellish scene, a cold shudder running down her spine. At that moment, a combat soldier clearing the wreckage let out a sharp cry of surprise. "Captain, there's one alive over here." The group rushed over. Beneath a pile of burnt debris lay a barely breathing survivor, his body charred beyond recognition, clinging feebly to life. Chen Jing immediately administered emergency stimulant injections. The survivor's eyes fluttered open. When he spotted the well-equipped strangers, clearly hailing from a powerful faction, a fleeting spark of desperate clarity flickered in his clouded gaze. "Run, run fast." His voice rasped like a rusted bellows. "They are devils who reduced this place to ashes." Lu Yi knelt down and asked in a heavy tone. "It's the Purification Army." Unadulterated terror flooded the survivors' features. "They say, we are viruses defiling nature. Only flame can bring final purification." From the survivors' disjointed, terrified ramblings, a formidable new hostile faction with radical extremist ideology took shape in everyone's minds. The Purification Army. They were a fanatical militia forged from pre-apocalypse radical environmentalists and zealous cult followers. They believed the glacial ice age was Mother Earth's grand purification of humanity's greedy civilization. Now that temperatures were climbing, they deemed rebuilding efforts sacrilege against this sacred cleansing. Thus they wielded flame as their weapon and purification as their creed, burning and destroying every survivor encampment they could locate. A band of lunatics, Wang who ground out between gritted teeth after hearing the tale. Just then, Ling, who had sat quietly beside Lu Yi this whole time, grew suddenly agitated. He jerked his head upward, pointing toward an endless vast swamp shrouded in thick fog far in the distance, sending a rapid mental transmission straight to Lu Yi's mind. The distress signal, it's deep inside there. They're so close, those flame-wielding people, they're there too. At almost the exact same instant, Professor Zhang Qian on the bridge issued a highest priority alert. "Master, mass clusters of unidentified energy signatures detected on the outer perimeter of the swamp ahead. Thermal imaging estimates a force of at least 100 personnel." Lu Yi rose slowly, his gaze fixed upon the fog-choked death swamp, his eyes turning ice-cold. They were not the only ones closing in on their target. Lu Yi stood atop the massive bridge of the Pioneer, his cold gaze fixed on the fog-shrouded death swamp stretching far into the distance. Alarm sirens wailed through the bridge, every heart in the room gripped with tense dread. "Master," Wang who stepped forward, thick killing intent lacing his voice, "give the order. Our pioneer could grind these so-called Purification Army troops to dust without breaking a sweat." No, Lu Yi shook his head, dismissing this seemingly straightforward plan. He gestured toward the swamp's intricate terrain on the monitor and analyzed calmly. "The waterways inside twist like a labyrinth. The Pioneer is far too bulky. If we venture in, we'll become a stationary target. What's more, our top priority is rescue, not a war of attrition against a horde of fanatics here." He turned to face his core team and issued a decisive order. "Professor, you and most of the crew stay aboard the Pioneer. Activate all defensive systems, maintain maximum alert status, and stand ready to provide fire support." "Understood, Master." Professor Zhang Qian nodded solemnly. "Old Wolf, Dr. Chan." Lu Yi's gaze settled on Wang Hu and Chen Jing. "The two of you come with me." He turned last to the young boy, who fidgeted anxiously, overwhelmed by the psychic agony radiating from their distant kin, and spoke in an unyielding tone. "Ling, you must remain here. Your psychic power is our only radar and guide. Use your senses to chart the safest path for us." But Ling's eyes clouded with worry and reluctance. "This is an order." Lu Yi's voice held no warmth. "Only if we succeed can we save your kin." Ling nodded half-comprehendingly, and for the first time, the fire of resolve for battle ignited within his pure star-bright eyes. Half an hour later, a small, specially modified black hovercraft scout boat streaked away from the Pioneer like an arrow, gliding silently into the fog-choked death swamp. The moment they entered the marsh, a stifling, perilous world entirely alien to the outside unfolded before them. Maze-like waterways wound between tangled roots of colossal, mutated flora. Beneath the murky, rot-reeking surface, sharp-toothed mutated amphibians dated past in fleeting flashes. "It's an echo of psychic power." Chen Jing pulled out a scanner, staring grimly at its wildly fluctuating readouts. "The kin trapped here has unconsciously leaked their mental energy from years of unrelenting fear and isolation, completely warping this entire ecosystem." This resonance reeks of sorrow and agony. Lu Yi closed his eyes, attuning to the same psychic frequency as Ling, yet far more fractured and chaotic, and spoke in a low, heavy tone. This way, hurry. Ling's urgent mental transmission echoed crisply inside Lu Yi's mind, precise as a navigation beacon. She's so scared. Fire. She hates fire. Just then, shrill motor roars and arrogant jeers drifted around a bend in the waterway not far off. Keep your eyes peeled, all of you. The commander says we have to root out this contaminant today. Burn it all. Scorch every filthy plant down to the roots. Let sacred flame purify this desecrated land. Wang Hu's expression darkened instantly, and he shot Lu Yi a silent hand signal. Master, it's Purification Army patrol boats. They're heading straight for us. Lu Yi acted without hesitation, cutting the hovercraft's engine and gliding the vessel into the shadow cast by towering mushroom like mutant plants. Barely after they concealed themselves, a patrol boat emblazoned with flame insignia cruised past ostentatiously nearby. Two Purification Army soldiers at its bow wielded massive flamethrowers, spewing torrents of searing fire wildly across the vegetation lining both banks. Flames roared, hissing as they devoured the alien flora, filling the air with acrid burning stench in an instant. Watching their practiced, fanatical motions as if incinerating trash, Chen Jing felt a cold prickle of dread run down her spine. They are not soldiers, she whispered. They are lunatics who take delight in destruction. Slipping past the enemy's line of sight, every meter forward carried the risk of instant death. Wang Hu drew on his former Special Forces training, mastering stealth and reconnaissance to perfection. He spotted enemy patrol routes well in advance and located the ideal hiding spots for Lu Yi time and again. The three moved like phantoms through the swamp, dancing with death as they crept deeper toward the marsh's heart. Closer now, Ling's psychic guidance grew swifter and clearer. Straight ahead, inside the metal house wrapped in countless giant tree vines. Another grueling half-hour of stealth navigation passed, and after slipping past the final Purification Army patrol squad, they finally reached the source of the distress signal. It was a massive futuristic mobile research platform, half submerged in turbid muddy water, its power long cut, dead and inert. Countless python-thick alien plant roots rose from the depths, coiling and constricting the entire structure like giant grasping hands, as if dragging it down into the underworld. The distress signal emanated from deep within this imprisoned vessel. This is a mobile research platform belonging to Shield Biotech. It looks like it's been trapped here for years. Chen Jing recognized the facility's origin at a glance. Prepare to board. Lu Yi's gaze sharpened to a razor edge. Will use shape charges to blast open its hatch by force. Yet the second they steered the hovercraft toward the platform to launch their rescue. Beep, beep, beep. A shrill alarm blared behind them, echoing across the entire swamp. A Purification Army patrol boat that had passed them earlier had spotted the fading wake their hovercraft left on the water's surface. Intruders. They're by the platform. Move fast. The alarm stirred a hornet's nest. Dozens of flame-marked patrol boats swarmed toward their position from all directions, encircling them rapidly. At that exact same moment, through the circular observation window of the platform, coated thickly in silt and water weeds, a young girl's face flashed into view, pale from endless darkness, contorted with raw, overwhelming terror. Boom! A psychic explosion detonated inside Lu Yi's mind. Ling's heart-wrenching, screaming mental wail erupted all at once. They're going to burn it down. Hurry! They're going to burn it down. Hurry! Ling's soul-rending psychic shriek reverberated like a deafening alarm inside Lu Yi's skull. Almost simultaneously, the main Purification Army contingent arrived from afar. Patrol boats branded with flame emblems circled the vine-wrapped research platform from every angle, like sharks drawn to blood. Their lead commander, a man whose face twisted with zealous religious fervor, offered no warning, no demand for surrender. He simply raised a hand high and issued his order in an almost chant-like, chilling tone. In the name of sacred flame, purify all filth and rot left behind by the old world. Burn. At his command, high-powered flamethrowers mounted on every patrol boat unleashed terrifying tongues of fire, dozens of meters long all at once. Roaring flames instantly ignited the dry plant roots coiled across the platform's hull. The blaze spread onward unstoppably. Damn it! Wang Hu's eyes blazed with rage. He whirled his rifle and unleashed a full burst at the nearest patrol boat. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat. Bullets sparked uselessly off the boat's armor, powerless to halt their atrocities. Master, we're surrounded. Panic edged Wang Hu's voice. We have to break out immediately. No, Lu Yi's voice was as cold as eternal glacial ice in that moment. He acted instantly, relaying crisp battle orders over their internal comms channel. Old Wolf, your mission is not to escape, it's to stall them. Use this terrain for sniping and harassment. Draw their main force away at all costs. Dr. Chun, come with me. We're going in to save her. Understood. Without hesitation, Wang Hu glanced at the platform being swallowed by fire, resolve hardening in his eyes. He revved the hovercraft's engine to maximum output, veering sharply in the opposite direction of the platform while raking enemy vessels on the other side with the craft's machine gun, creating an opening for Lu Yi. Lu Yi steered his hovercraft forward through scattered enemy gunfire, gliding like a ghost toward the flame-scorched hull of the research platform. Where's the entry point? He roared into the communicator. Beneath, under the water, the round hatch. Ling, still aboard the distant Pioneer, guided him via telepathy. Lu Yi took a deep breath, tucked several small-shaped charges into his jacket, and dove straight down into the icy, rot-stinking muck. Guided by Ling's precise psychic positioning, he quickly located the rust-sealed emergency escape hatch on the platform's submerged lower level, caked over with silt and water weeds. He set the charges swiftly, then surged back to the surface. Boom. A muffled underwater detonation sent towering waves surging upward. The hatch had been blown wide open. Move. Lu Yi grabbed Chen Jing, and without pause they dove back beneath the surface, slipping through the blasted breach into the platform's interior. The facility was pitch black, flooded with stagnant water and reeking of mildew enough to turn the stomach. Cough. How many years has someone been trapped down here? Chen Jing flicked on her tactical flashlight, stunned by the sight stretching before them. Save her first. Guided by Ling's psychic sense, they soon found the source of the distress signal inside a locked dormant chamber, stark as a prison cell. It belonged to a girl who looked no older than 16 or 17, clad in tattered lab scrubs. Her skin was sickly pale from perpetual darkness. She huddled in the corner of the room, shaking violently from the blasts and flames outside, her eyes flooded with terror of everything beyond her confinement. Don't be afraid. We're here to rescue you. Chen Jing stepped forward at once, slipping off her own jacket and draping it gently over the girl named Lin Wei. Yet Lin Wei's mental state teetered on the brink of collapse. She merely hugged her knees, trembling non-stop, muttering brokenly, Fire, fire, don't burn me. We're out of time, they've broken in. Lu Yi's voice echoed from the hatchway just then. He had hauled heavy ordnance from the craft's armory, erecting a makeshift firing line across the narrow corridor to hold back swarms of Purification Army soldiers pouring through the breach. Bullets ricocheted wildly down the passage, and explosions erupted one after another. Tell her. Lu Yi roared over his shoulder at Chen Jing while reloading his rifle. We're her only hope. If she won't come with us, every single one of us dies here, burned alive by these lunatics. A jolt of urgency shot through Chen Jing. She knew gentle comfort would not work now. She grabbed Lin Wei's trembling shoulders, locked eyes with her, and spoke each word sharply and clearly. Lin Wei, listen to me. The men outside are fanatics who want to burn you and us to ashes together. We risked our lives just to save you. Do you want to live? Live. I want to live. A flicker of emotion finally stirred in Lin Wei's hollow eyes. She looked at the kind young woman soaked through from trying to protect her, then listened to the gunfire of the man outside fighting tooth and nail to shield them both. A faint, desperate spark of the will to survive ignited amid her overwhelming terror. Glancing past the hatch at the raging fire lighting up the corridor, drawing ever closer, her primal survival instinct overpowered her crippling fear. She stretched out her gaunt, bloodless hands and pressed them flat against the cold metal wall. She poured every last shred of her remaining strength into her mind. In an instant, boom, rumble, rumble. The entire research platform, trapped in the swamp for years, shook violently from stem to stern. The countless python-sized tree roots coiled around the vessel seemed to awaken all at once. They burst upward from the murky mire, countless enraged primeval tendrils whipping through the air with earth-shattering force. They slammed brutally down onto every nearby Purification Army patrol boat. Crunch. Crash. The steel patrol boats were as fragile as toys against these roots brimming with the wrath of nature, instantly battered, crushed, and torn into flying shrapnel. Flamethrowers, firearms, soldiers, everything was dragged mercilessly down into the swamp's depths beneath this unstoppable power. A temporary green barrier of wildly surging plant life sprang up all around the platform, cutting off their pursuers. Now's our chance. Move. Seizing this once-in-a-lifetime opening, Lu Yi grabbed Chen Jing and the exhausted Lin Wei, sprinted back to the hover scout craft, and broke free of the encirclement. They steered the battered but triumphant scout boat back to the Pioneer, where Ling waited anxiously by the docking hatch. For the first time after years of lonely isolation, the two kindred beings reached out and cautiously touched one another's hands. Watching this historic moment unfold, Lu Yi knew his journey to seek out all their kin had only just begun, and they had earned themselves a formidable, unhinged new enemy that deemed them nothing more than infectious viruses. As Lu Yi watched Ling and Lin Wei's two pairs of equally pure eyes, burdened with unspeakable suffering, meet for the very first time in the physical world, he realized his seemingly reckless expedition had borne its first true reward. He had gained a new ally, but more importantly, he had reunited two souls who had endured years of crippling loneliness alone. Inside the Pioneer's medical bay, the air hung tense, yet wrapped in fragile tenderness. Chen Jing ran a full diagnostic scan on Lin Wei, whose body and psyche were both utterly drained. Trapped in darkness and isolation for so long, the girl flinched from all human contact. All except Ling Ling never left her side. He said nothing, only slipped his small palm into Lin Wei's. A pure, warm stream of psychic energy flowed steadily from him. It soothed her frayed, skittish spirit like a gentle brook. How is she holding up? Lu Yi stepped inside and asked in a low voice. Her condition is grave, though not as catastrophic as I feared. Chen Jing frowned at the data scrolling across the monitors. Chronic malnutrition has degraded many of her bodily functions. Worst of all, she suffers from severe acute stress disorder and claustrophobia. But, she glanced at the quiet boy beside the bed, a hint of amazement softening her tone. Ling's psychic calming works wonders. Her heart rate and hormone levels are stabilizing rapidly. In a way, Ling is the only medicine she truly needs. Just then, Lin Wei, who had remained silent this whole time, seemed to sense Lu Yi's genuine goodwill. She lifted her head slowly, her eyes wide and skittish as a startled fawn, stealing a timid glance at him. A faint psychic ripple passed through Ling as a relay, reaching Lu Yi's mind. Thank you. You're welcome. We're family now. For the first time, a subtle, soft undertone crept into Lu Yi's voice. Family. The word lit a faint glow deep within Lin Wei's empty eyes. She slowly extended her bony, emaciated hand, palm upturned. To everyone's surprise, a shriveled seed materialized out of nowhere, resting light upon her skin. The seed then sprouted, shot forth stems, and bloomed at a rate defying all natural laws. In barely a dozen seconds, a delicate white flower exuding a faint sweet fragrance bloomed fully in her palm. She held the blossom out toward Lu Yi. For you. Lu Yi took the flower. He understood this small gesture meant the traumatized girl had at last pried open the first crack in her guarded heart. With her joining their ranks, his already powerful team had gained an incalculable new reserve of potential strength. Yet the joy of welcoming their new kin could not erase the grave threat looming over them. On the bridge of the Pioneer, the atmosphere hung heavy as forged iron. Professor Zhang Qian and Wang, who studied a massive holographic screen, analyzing data chips salvaged from the wreckage of the Purification Army patrol boats. Master, the situation is far worse than we anticipated. Wang, who gestured to a sprawling faction map. Data recovered from their craft proves this so-called Purification Army operates on a scale beyond our wildest guesses. They are not a single small force. They spread across the entire continent like a viral plague. The patrol squad we fought today was merely an advanced scouting detachment from their 7th Fleet. Professor Zhang Qian pulled up a second set of readings, wariness thick in his voice. Furthermore, their technological development is wildly skewed. Their general conventional tech may lag behind ours, but their flame weaponry and high-temperature alloys have reached an almost inconceivable level of advancement. He zoomed in on a blurry recording captured by the patrol boat's dash cam. The footage showed a colossal steel fortress rolling slowly through the ruins, billowing thick black smoke like an active mobile volcano. This is the 7th Fleet's flagship, the Flame Judgment. Professor Zhang Qian's voice turned dry with dread. Analysis confirms its main cannon is a plasma flamethrower with a range exceeding 20 kilometers. A single blast is enough to melt an entire small settlement to slag. Most critical of all, Chen Jing cut in, her face drained of all color. They appear to be tracking a unique energy signature tied to Shield Biotech. They are purifying everything in their path as they follow it. In other words, they are almost certainly hunting Ling and Lin Wei. Every pair of eyes turned to Lu Yi. There was no escaping an all-or-nothing decisive battle now. Lu Yi stared long and hard at the monstrous flame judgment displayed on screen. He knew the Pioneers stood little chance in a head-on direct clash with its current firepower loadout. He made an unexpectedly audacious, unyielding decision that stunned them all. We can no longer wait passively for them to find us. His tone was cold and resolute. We will strike first, before they close in on our position. What? Wang Hu blanched in shock. Master, that's far too reckless. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. A wild, blazing resolve flickered in Lu Yi's eyes. Professor, I order you to divert all spare power reserves aboard the Pioneer directly to the main electromagnetic cannon system. We will push the railgun to an extreme, reckless overload charge. I will land one devastating strike to show these fanatics who truly rules this wasteland. Understood. A feverish fire ignited in Professor Zhang Qian's gaze as well. But just as every compartment aboard the Pioneer descended into frantic battle preparation for the looming showdown, the shrill crimson alarm signifying maximum threat level blared without warning across the bridge. Alert! Alert! Ultra-high thermal signature detected, approaching at extreme velocity. Professor Zhang Qian lunged for the long-range detection console. When he laid eyes on the massive, blinding scarlet, glowing on the screen, all color drained from his already pale face. Impossible! This cannot be right. How can they move this fast? The marker representing the flame judgment hurtled straight toward them at a terrifying speed utterly disproportionate to its gargantuan size. It had found them. Lu Yi fixed his cold, steely gaze on the rapidly expanding, oppressive red blip on the radar. He lifted the ship-wide comms handset and issued his order in a voice steady and unshakable as a mountain. Broadcast my order to all hands. All crew, report to Level 1 battle stations immediately. Prepare to face our final enemy. Prepare to face our final enemy. Lu Yi's rock-steady voice echoed crisply through every speaker across the vessel, reaching every single crew member's ears. The Pioneer, this steel colossus forged from wasteland salvage and Shield Biotech's lost legacy, awakened fully from its slumber at last. On the bridge, crimson maximum threat alarm lights strobed wildly, and shrill sirens wailed without cease. Every crewman bustled about their posts with tense, orderly efficiency. Far on the horizon, the flame judgment, the massive mobile steel fortress resembling an erupting volcano, rolled forward belching plumes of black smoke. It was a demonic war machine marching straight for them. Swarming around it were countless flame assault vehicles, forming a death sea of steel and fire stretching as far as the eye could see. All hands listen up. Wang Hu's roar cut over the command channel. Hostile forces have entered maximum engagement range. All automated weapon emplacements, fire at will. In an instant, dozens of firing hatches split open along the Pioneer's heavy armor plating. Volleys of Vulcan cannons and automatic grenade launchers unleashed a devastating metal storm toward the ocean of enemy vehicles. Yet the Purification Army launched their full-scale counterattack at the exact same time. Countless incendiary and rocket ordnance streaked overhead like an inverted rain of fire, blanketing the entire hull of the Pioneer. Master, Professor Zhang Qian stared at the dense swarm of blips covering the radar screen, his voice shrill with panic. Hostile fire density is overwhelming. Automated interception systems have hit maximum capacity. Request energy shield activation. Granted. Lu Yi's gaze, cold as eternal glacial ice, remained locked on the advancing flame judgment in the distance. Energy shield engage. Hum. A faint blue hemispherical energy barrier burst upward from the Pioneer's armored hull, a giant translucent azure bubble fully enclosing the entire massive vessel. The very next second, the rain of fire descended. Boom, 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 boom. Devastating explosions sent ring after ring of dazzling, yet lethal ripples surging across the blue energy shield. The entire Pioneer shuddered violently beneath the brutal impact. Shield energy at 90%. Professor Zhang Qian shouted his report. 85%. 80%. We can't hold out. Their firepower is far too overwhelming. What's the charge status of the main cannon? Lu Yi's voice remained terrifyingly calm. Reporting to Master. The electromagnetic main cannon is 70% charged. Estimated 3 minutes remaining to full power. 3 minutes. Lu Yi stared at the flame judgment, now within medium range. He knew the enemy's ace weapon was about to be unleashed. Sure enough, the colossal mobile volcanic fortress ground slowly to a halt. Its demonic maw of a main gun, a massive plasma flamethrower, lifted gradually. A blinding white glow, bright as a miniature sun, began coalescing at the muzzle, radiating heart-stopping heat. That's the Flame Judgment's primary cannon. For the first time, a note of alarm crept into Chun Jing's voice. Data analysis confirms its output can melt through our energy shield in an instant. We have to stop it. It's too late. Professor Zhang Qian cried out in despair. It's charging faster than us. 1 minute. Only 1 minute until it fires. Wang Hu, Lu Yi roared suddenly. Concentrate all firepower on a single point. Blast through its frontal armor. Understood. Just then, two youthful yet resolute mental transmissions echoed simultaneously inside Lu Yi's mind. Lu Yi. That was Ling, we can help. That was Lin Wei. Lu Yi spun around to find Ling and Lin Wei had somehow made their way onto the bridge. The two small figures stood hand in hand, their pure eyes blazing with unprecedented radiance, burning like twin blue suns. They intended to fight side by side. Excellent. Lu Yi grasped their plan in an instant and issued a brand new set of decisive orders. Wang Hu, lay down covering fire. Professor Zhang, divert all shield energy to the forward barrier. Dr. Chun, calculate the trajectory of their main cannon blast. Lin Wei, the rest rests on you too. The moment the glow at the Flame Judgment's gun muzzle peaked, ready to spew annihilating fire, Ling and Lin Wei struck. Blinding blue light erupted from Ling's eyes. He stretched out his small palm toward the enemy, and an invisible, yet colossal psychic barrier materialized instantly before the pioneer like a divine bulwark. Meanwhile, Lin Wei pressed her gaunt hands flat against the frigid metal deck. Boom. Rumble. Rumble. Beneath the entire hull of the pioneer, the hard permafrost frozen solid for years erupted as if alive. Countless giant vines reinforced with Leviathan carapace armor, glinting with metallic sheen, surged upward from the depths like the awakened tentacles of the Kraken. They surged forward with overwhelming momentum. Their target was not the flames, it was the mountainous Flame Judgment itself. At almost the exact same instant, the Flame Judgment fired. A pillar of white plasma hot enough to liquefy steel burst forth. Yet upon making contact with Ling's invisible psychic barrier, the fire column's velocity ground to a forced, fleeting halt. Within that split-second window, the metallic vine tentacles arrived first, coiling relentlessly around the massive firing barrel of the Flame Judgment and the steel treads supporting its titanic frame. Creak, screech, a teeth-grinding shriek of twisting metal cut through the air. The Flame Judgment's gun barrel was wrenched sharply upward against its will. The cataclysmic pillar of fire skimmed over the very top of the Pioneer's energy shield and streaked far into the distant sky, burning a massive hollow crater through the clouds overhead. It was immobilized. Now's our chance. Blazing, ferocious light flared in Lu Yi's eyes. He stepped personally to the main cannon's control console, locking the fully overcharged electromagnetic railgun squarely onto the Flame Judgment's sole, exposed energy core. Farewell. He pressed the red firing button calmly. A blinding blue flash bright enough to illuminate the entire sky burst forth, accompanied by a silent, eardrum-splitting roar. For a heartbeat, time seemed frozen. Every gaze fixed on the mountain-sized Flame Judgment far off on the battlefield. The electromagnetic round, carrying the full stored power of the Pioneer, struck its energy core dead center without error. There was no earth-shattering detonation. The colossal steel fortress merely stiffened abruptly. Then, countless spiderweb-like blue fissures spread across its entire titanic frame, radiating outward from the ruptured core. At last, beneath the despairing stares of every surviving Purification Army soldier, this mobile volcano of flame and destruction crumpled as if stripped of all structural support. It collapsed soundlessly into a twisted heap of smoking metal wreckage. A deathly silence fell across the battlefield. We won, did we win? We did it. After the brief hush, a thunderous, wild cheer of relief erupted on the Pioneer's bridge. They had truly defeated an apocalyptic mobile fortress. Magnificent work. Wang Hu slammed a fist against the control console, glistening tears welling in his fierce eyes. Professor Zhang Qian and Chun Jing embraced one another, too overcome with emotion to speak. Only Lu Yi remained seated calmly at the main cannon console. He stared out at the smoldering wreckage in the distance, no flicker of joy in his gaze, only icy, unwavering composure. He picked up the communicator and issued his first post-battle order. Wang Hu, lead the spearhead squad to secure the battlefield. Bring me one prisoner alive, the highest-ranking officer you can find. Understood, Master. Half an hour later, inside the Pioneer's makeshift interrogation chamber, Wang Hu's squad had retrieved the Purification Army commander from the rubble. His legs had been blown off in the blast, yet he still glared with fanatical hatred. Now he was bound to a cold metal chair like a broken cur. Lu Yuyi and Chun Jing stepped slowly inside, with Ling floating quietly beside Lu Yuyi. You command this vessel? The commander stared at the young man, his eyes swimming with disbelief and malice. You are a virus that defile nature. Lu Yuyi ignored his ranting insults, pulled over a spare chair, and sat down evenly. Tell me everything you know about Avalon. His voice held zero emotion. Avalon. The commander froze for a moment, then burst into maniacal laughter. Ha ha. So that's what you're chasing. It's useless. You'll never find it. And even if you do, you'll never get inside. It's S.H.I.E.L.D.'s last pure sanctuary, the final tomb for this polluted world. I take it you have no intention of cooperating. Lu Yuyi's tone stayed flat and unchanging. He said nothing more, only patted Ling gently on the shoulder. Ling understood the signal, his star-pure eyes fixed quietly on the still cackling commander. An invisible, unstoppable tide of immense psychic power flooded the entire interrogation room in an instant. The commander's laughter cut off dead. His body began to shake violently, and for the very first time, raw fear flickered in his fanatical eyes. It felt as though an invisible giant hand was squeezing his brain tight, tearing away every buried memory layer by layer. No, stop. He let out a terrified wail. You're one too, one of the hibernation project abominations. You monster. So you recognize him. Lu Yuyi broke his silence. Beneath Ling's psychic power, the commander's mental defense crumbled completely within minutes. He slumped limply in the chair like a puppet drained of all strength and began to recount a staggering tale in disjointed, gasping fragments. He had once been one of S.H.I.E.L.D. Biotech's top-tier scientists, a core founding member of the Hibernation Project. He had witnessed S-001's creation firsthand and once burned with fervor over that epic defining creation. We thought we had birthed a god. The commander's voice rasped, heavy with agony. But we were wrong. What we created was a devil that would end everything. He recounted the day S-001 lost control, the silent psychic storm that shattered the souls of thousands of Institute staff in an instant. I survived only because I was sheltered in the lowest radiation bunker at the time. He let out a bitter laugh. When I crawled back out, the whole world had changed. All my colleagues, all my friends, reduced to soulless ice statues lined outside the gates. That's when I realized the unspeakable sin we had committed. Humanity's technology has marched down a dead road of self-destruction. His emotions flared wild once more. Only primal flame can burn away all this corruption, can stop another shield from rising again. And so you turned into this raving lunatic. Chun Jing said coldly, listening to his ramblings. The commander offered no rebuttal. Give me Avalon's coordinates. Lu Yi had no patience left for his confessions. He only sought the final answer. The commander lifted his head, fixing Lu Yi with a warped, venomous stare. You want to go? Fine, I'll tell you. He cackled madly. Let this monster heir to S.H.I.E.L.D.'s atrocities witness the ridiculous paradise the self-proclaimed true gods built for themselves. And let them watch the discarded, failed specimen they abandoned grow into such a terrifying monster now. Driven by a twisted desire for revenge, to force his creators to behold the hell they had wrought, he divulged every detail without reservation. It included the coordinates in the Mariana Trench and the unique access frequency capable of tricking Avalon's AI and bypassing its energy barrier. Once he possessed the final coordinates, Lu Yi brought the interrogation to an end and rose slowly to his feet. Your crimes end here. He did not spare the pathetic fanatic another glance, turning and walking out of the interrogation chamber. 3 days later, maintenance and refitting work aboard the Pioneer entered its final phase. Drawing on Avalon's technical blueprints, Professor Zhang Qian had fully converted the land carrier into a super submarine that could withstand the crushing pressure of 10,000-meter deep-sea depths. Every crew member gathered on the massive bridge, gazing at the holographic projection marking their final destination, the deepest point on the planet. Excitement and unyielding resolve burned in every pair of eyes. Lu Yi stood at the captain's podium, his gaze sweeping over Wang Hu, Chun Jing, Professor Zhang Qian, Ling, Lin Wei, and his trusted companions. He picked up the communicator and delivered the final order to the vessel in his steady, powerful voice. Target, the Mariana Trench. Our voyage stretches to the stars and seas, and to that hidden ultimate abyss. Set sail. At Lu Yi's firm, powerful command, the Pioneer, this steel colossus bearing the hope of humanity's rebirth, pulled slowly away from the coastline. It headed out toward the rough, unfathomably deep blue ocean. When the giant ship reached the coordinates marked by the distress signal, Professor Zhang Qian took a deep breath and pressed a red button on the main control console. Pioneer, activate final form. All crew, report to deep-sea combat stations. Beneath his faintly excited tone, a harsh, teeth-grating mechanical transformation echoed throughout the vessel. The mountain treads retracted, and massive stabilizer fins extended from both sides of the ship. The near-limitless energy supplied by the Leviathan core surged furiously into dozens of anti-gravity engines mounted along the hull's bottom. Before the stunned eyes of the crew, the tens of thousands-ton land carrier hovered weightlessly above the sea surface. Deep-sea mode fully engaged. Professor Zhang Qian called out. We are ready to dive. Submerge, Lu Yi ordered. The Pioneer, this avenging warship forged from the wasteland, sank slowly into the ultimate abyss at the very bottom of the world, akin to a primeval sea monster. The descent was long and oppressive. On the bridge, everyone held their breath, silently watching the rapidly shifting world beyond the viewports. All light vanished once they reached a depth of 1,000 meters. Nothing remained but endless, unnerving blackness. Depth, 3,000 meters. Pressure reading, exceeding the maximum tolerance of any military submarine from the old world. Wang Hu's voice came out dry. He stared at the soaring red numbers. Do not worry, a fanatical glint shone in Professor Zhang Qian's eyes. The Pioneer's hull is forged from the hardest carapace of that primeval Leviathan alloyed with shields, shaped memory metal. 3,000 meters is nothing. Not even 10,000 meters could scratch its surface. Just then, several massive dark shapes glowing faint blue streaked out of the abyssal darkness and slammed violently against the ship's viewports. They were mutated giant deep-sea squids, lashing thick tentacles as they relentlessly assailed the unwelcome intruder. Yet their strikes did not make the Pioneer shake even slightly. Something's harassing us. Shall we activate defensive systems? Wang Hu asked. Pay them no heed. Lu Yi's gaze remained fixed firmly on the unfathomable depths ahead. Our destination lies far deeper. The descent continued. 5,000 meters, 8,000 meters, 10,000 meters. When the depth gauge finally locked on the suffocating figure of 10,994 meters, they knew they had reached the end of the world, the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Switch all exterior searchlights to maximum power, Lu Yi commanded. Dozens of blazing light beams bright enough to mimic daylight instantly pierced the eternal blackness. Then all witnesses beheld a miraculous sight they would carry with them for the rest of their lives. At the far end of the searchlight glow lay an unimaginably vast underwater city, composed of countless futuristic white buildings. It was entirely wrapped within a gigantic blue bubble energy shield and lit from within, resting quietly on the trench floor. This was the doomsday paradise S.H.I.E.L.D.'s High Council had built for themselves. This was Avalon. Good heavens, even battle-hardened Wang Hu, who had stared death in the face countless times, could not hold back a genuine gasp at the science fiction scene unfolding before him. They truly built an entire city on the seabed, Chun Jing murmured under her breath. The moment the Pioneer drew near, the city, dormant for years, stirred to life. Avalon's automated defense systems activated in an instant. Hundreds of launch hatches split open across the city's dome. Countless high-pressure auto-torpedoes and lethal deep-sea laser weapons swarmed toward the Pioneer. Alert! High-energy ordnance detected inbound. Raise energy shield, Professor Zhang Qian roared. Yet against the far stronger combined psychic barrier woven by Ling and Lin Wei, all physical attacks collided with an invisible wall. They detonated and dissipated mid-flight. The frequency, Ling's mental transmission echoed in Lu Yi's mind. The frequency that old man gave us, it works. Professor, Lu Yi shouted immediately. On it, Professor Zhang Qian's fingers flew across the console. Using the special clearance frequency provided by the captured commander, he successfully tricked Avalon's central AI. A temporary vortex-shaped energy rift materialized in the giant barrier. Now's our chance. Lu Yi's voice rang with unyielding resolve. Wang Hu, full speed ahead. Aye. The Pioneer's engines roared at maximum output, shooting forward like a loosed arrow. It slipped through the gap in the split second before it sealed shut, forcing entry into this isolated underwater haven. Almost the instant they breached the barrier, wail, wail, wail. Shrill top-tier intrusion alarms blared across every corner of Avalon. The Pioneer did not slow for a second. It crashed through the docking bay's isolation gates, skidding to a rough halt on Avalon's central plaza. The heavy boarding ramp slowly lowered open. Lu Yi led his elite team as they set foot for the first time in this spotless, crisp-aired underwater city. Awaiting them stood S.H.I.E.L.D.'s final, most formidable legion, a steel tide of elite soldiers in sleek, pure white-powered armor, alongside advanced executioner combat robots armed with high-energy weaponry. Behind the army, atop the tallest spire of the Parliament Hall, a massive holographic projection flickered to life. An elderly man with white hair and beard, his eyes sharp and fanatical, stared coldly at the wasteland intruders. The ultimate showdown loomed imminent. Guests from the wasteland, the white-haired, sharp-eyed founder of S.H.I.E.L.D. spoke slowly from the giant hologram atop Parliament Hall, his voice broadcasting across every corner of the city's public address system, steeped in condescending authority. I admit your arrival fell outside all my calculations. You are far more resilient and far more interesting than I anticipated. But this game ends now. The second his words faded, the steel tide of white power armor troopers and executioner robots surged forward. Dense volleys of energy beams poured down upon Lu Yi's party like a torrential rainstorm. Open fire. Wang Hu roared the order, charging fearlessly into combat at the head of his battle-tested spearhead squad. The final war that would decide the fate of Earth's civilization erupted within this city. Master, Professor Zhang Qian's urgent voice crackled over the comms. Avalon's city defense grid is rebooting. I need more time to crack its protocols. Jing. Lu Yi's tone was ice calm. Analyze the enemy formation and locate their command core. Understood. Street fighting erupted into brutal chaos in an instant. Wang Hu and his warriors clashed in life or death combat with S.H.I.E.L.D.'s power-armored soldiers. Ling and Lin Wei joined forces to conjure a massive psychic barrier, barely holding back the devastating cannon fire of the executioner robots. Lu Yi knew they would be worn down to exhaustion if this dragged on. Their target was not these endless grunts. It was the lofty, true mastermind pulling all the strings. At that exact moment, simultaneous mental transmissions from Ling and Lin Wei echoed in his head. Brother, I sense another one like us, the strongest of our kind. He's imprisoned beneath Parliament Hall. He's calling out to us. S000. A blazing, fierce light flashed in Lu Yi's eyes. He issued an instantaneous order to Wang Hu. Old Wolf, hold the line. Buy me 10 minutes. Aye, master. Wang Hu roared, sending one power-armored soldier flying with a single punch. Hold your ground, men. Without further hesitation, Lu Yi raced toward the towering Parliament Hall alongside Ling and Lin Wei. The three of them streaked forward like arrows loosed from a bow. Every robot along their path went berserk in attempts to intercept them, yet trapped within the psychic corridor forged jointly by Ling and Lin Wei, the cold machines moved sluggishly, as if mired in thick mud. Boom. After blowing open the alloy door leading underground with a shaped charge, they burst into the hibernation laboratory, which doubled as Avalon's central biological mainframe. At the center rested a life support vat far larger and more intricate than the one that had once held Ling. Suspended silently within floated a naked teenage boy of unearthly, exquisite beauty. This was S000. You've finally come. A vast, weary stream of psychic thought flooded straight into the minds of Lu Yi, Ling, and Lin Wei. Help me. Pull out all these tubes. That old man's so-called paradise deserves to crumble. Lu Yi did not hesitate for a heartbeat. He swung a fire axe and severed every energy conduit linked to the vat in brutal strikes. The second he was freed, a cataclysmic psychic force built up over years erupted from S000's body like a nuclear detonation. Every electronic device and combat robot across all of Avalon froze rigid in that instant, before bursting in showers of electric sparks and shorting out permanently. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s final legion was annihilated in a single blast of mental power. Up atop Parliament Hall, the Founder's composed facade crumbled away for the first time, replaced by undisguised terror and rage. With unobstructed passage now open, Lu Yi led Ling and Lin Wei straight into Avalon's highest seat of power, the top floor of Parliament Hall. The white-haired, white-bearded old man sat before a floor-to-ceiling glass window, staring coldly at them. Defective products. All of you defective failures. He glanced at Ling and Lin Wei, completely unharmed, then fixed his gaze on Lu Yi. His eyes were blazing with madness. You have no idea what you're doing. What you're destroying is humanity's only hope. Hope. Lu Yi let out a cold laugh. Clinging to a miserable existence 10,000 meters beneath the sea, this is what you call hope. What could you possibly understand? The Founder shot to his feet, roaring hysterically. Do you think this apocalypse is the end? No. It is merely the beginning. The universe is far darker than you could ever imagine. Earth is nothing more than a farm, waiting to be harvested by higher civilizations. Everything I have done was to force humanity's evolution, to preserve a tiny spark of life when the true doomsday arrives. He pointed straight at Lu Yui, fanaticism burning bright. And S000 is no prisoner. He is the ultimate weapon. Now, allow me to personally recover all of you. He pressed a button. A top-tier pure white biodynamic power armor, wired to Avalon's Central City AI, rapidly enveloped his entire body, its surfaces pulsing with organic textures. The final showdown that would decide Earth's future erupted without delay. The Founder's strength far exceeded Lu Yui's expectations. The armor fused almost seamlessly with his body, pushing strength, speed, and energy manipulation to an inhuman threshold. Midway through the brutal clash, Lu Yui was quickly cornered with nowhere to retreat. The instant the Founder's energy-cloaked claws lunged forward, poised to pierce his heart, three slight figures, S000, Ling, and Lin Wei, appeared side by side directly before Lu Yui. They clasped hands, and for the first time, identical unyielding resolve glinted in their pure eyes. Brother, Lu Yui, thank you. Now it is our turn to protect you. Trinity Unison. They poured every last shred of their purest spiritual essence into an unstoppable torrent of light, channeling it wholly into Lu Yui's body without reservation. A transformation unlike anything he had endured swept over Lu Yui in that moment. His boundless inner void merged perfectly with the world-forging spiritual power surging through him. An entirely new ability capable of warping and rewriting reality, Domain, was born. He slowly opened his eyes. The entire world unraveled before his sight into endless lines of editable code. He glanced at the Founder still roaring furiously before him and simply held out one hand, calm and unhurried. It is over. The moment Lu Yui spoke those words with his reality-warping domain power, the Founder's once unbeatable biodynamic armor crumbled silently like sand eroded by time, dissolving into a swirling cloud of metallic dust. He did not slay the madman who had birthed the apocalypse and sought to play God. Instead, he imprisoned him forever within the luxurious prison he had built for himself 10,000 meters beneath the waves, condemning him to witness the brand new world he had scorned. Several months later, back on the surface, the Pioneer rested quietly at the spaceport of the new Oasis City. Lu Yui stood upon the bridge, overlooking the land below, which had bloomed back to vibrant life, filled with laughter and joy. Thanks to his efforts, technology salvaged from Avalon and alien designs was being deployed to rapidly restore Earth's ecosystems. Survivor settlements had expanded into gleaming, futuristic metropolises one after another. The flame of human civilization blazed anew across the wasteland at an unprecedented pace. Wang Hu became commander-in-chief of the newly formed United Earth Military. Chun Jing and Zhang Qian headed the Academy of Human Sciences, endlessly unraveling the mysteries of the cosmos. As for Ling and Lin Wei, they reverted to ordinary children with unique innate gifts, growing up as the cherished guardians of this new world. Lu Yui gazed toward the horizon, where the sun broke fully through the clouds, casting brilliant golden light across the land. Then he lifted his eyes to the vast, glittering starry sky, no longer a looming threat, but a sea of boundless possibility. He knew war might still await them somewhere out there. Yet an entirely new era, belonging solely to humanity, had been forged by his own hands. Time slipped by. 10 years later, year 10 of the new era, New Oasis City stood on the surface. Towering futuristic white buildings teeming with life sprouted everywhere. Maglev trains built from derivative technology of the Pioneer glided silently and steadily through the air. At the city's center stood a colossal world tree nurtured to full growth by Lin Wei. Its sprawling boughs radiated soft, vital energy that wrapped the entire settlement in a warm, life-giving field. No trace remained of the apocalypse's brutal devastation. Inside New City First Comprehensive Academy, a history class was underway for children born into peace. A little girl with twin braids raised her hand and asked, "Teacher, the textbook says before we were born, the world was trapped in an endless freeze by a disaster called the solar flu. Is that true?" The white-haired history teacher, a survivor Lu Yui had pulled from the rubble, looked out at the children. A flicker of reminiscence softened his gaze. "It is true, child. It was a time of utter despair, known to us as the Great Freeze Era. Civilization collapsed, all order vanished. There were tyrants like Scar, who resorted to any cruelty to cling to survival. There were fanatics like the Purification Army, who spread destruction and death in the name of false divinity." "What happened then?" the little girl pressed. "How did we survive?" A look of reverence crossed the teacher's face. Because a founder came to us. He rose from the ashes of the apocalypse and built the first steel fortress amid despair. Alone, he fought swarms of mutated beasts and with unflinching resolve, judged traitors who betrayed their own. He descended 10,000 meters into the abyss to free the imprisoned spirits of nature and put an end to the old world's final madness. He is the founder of our new world, the sole guardian of human civilization, Lu Yui. Meanwhile, in an underground military base beneath the Kunlun Mountains, Commander-in-Chief Wang, who reviewed a newly formed Space Marine Corps bound for the Mars colony. You are fortunate. His voice boomed through the hangar. You were born into an age of peace. But never forget, this peace was bought with blood and countless lives by Supreme Commander Lu Yui and all our forebears. Our voyage stretches to the stars and seas. But behind us lies our home, which we must defend with our very lives. Do you understand? Yes, General. The young soldiers roared in unison, shaking the hangar walls. Honorary Dean Professor Zhang Qian, now aged and frail, stood with current Dean Xinjing before a hologram of an experimental curvature engine vessel, crafted for humanity's first interstellar voyage beyond the solar system. Xiao Chun, Professor Zhang Qian said, heavy with nostalgia. Once upon a time, we would rejoice over a single scrap of armor. Who could have imagined that in just 10 short years, we would stand on the verge of touching the edge of the universe? All of this is thanks to the legacy Master brought back with him. Xinjing smiled. The youthful timidity of her past had faded, replaced by wisdom and the quiet confidence of a leader. Indeed, Professor Zhang Qian nodded. Our civilization has only just begun its journey. New World, Australian continent, core zone of the world tree. The continent once rendered barren by climate collapse had bloomed into an endless primeval forest. Ling and Lin Wei, now a handsome young man and elegant woman, walked across the soft grass. They were attuned to the pulsing life rhythm of the entire planet. After sacrificing their core spiritual power, they had lost most of their world-shattering destructive abilities, but in exchange, they truly merged with this world, becoming the guardians of Earth's ecological will. The glaciers in North America have melted another 3% this year, Lin Wei's mental voice echoed. Ling nodded. The penguins of Antarctica have established new colonies at last. The world is slowly returning to its original, perfect state. They exchanged a soft, contented smile. Geosynchronous orbit above Earth, the Pioneer, upgraded over the decade, drifted silently through space. Alone upon the bridge, Lu Yi stood at the highest point of this mobile sanctuary. 10 years had passed, yet time had barely marked his features, only deepening the quiet vastness in his eyes. He no longer needed to personally lead battles. He existed as a symbol, an icon, an unshakable faith rooted in every heart across humanity. He stared down at the blue planet below, regaining its vitality and growing more beautiful with each passing year. He lifted his gaze to the endless glittering starfield, no longer a threat, but an ocean of infinite possibility. He knew the founder of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s final warning about the harvesters might one day prove true, yet no turmoil stirred within his heart anymore. He thought of his past life, of the cold betrayal he had endured, of the hatred etched deep into his bones. All of it felt like a distant story belonging to another timeline, unrelated to the man he was now. He was the guardian of this new world. At that moment, his communicator vibrated. A hologram transmission from Chunjing flickered to life. The 10th anniversary of the New Era celebration starts today, she smiled warmly. Everyone's gathered, waiting only for you. Will you come home? Home. Lu Yi looked at all the familiar, joyful faces filling the background of the hologram. For the first time in 10 years, a genuine, soft warmth stirred deep within his long-stilled heart. A gentle smile tugged at his mouth. Very well. I'm coming home.